Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. My name is Joan Beely, and I am the chairperson for the commission. This meeting may be attended in person or by remote video or telephone conference. Zoom conference access information was provided for the commission members, applicants, and other interested persons to participate and be noticed on the agenda posted on the town website. For all those who are attending, I would ask you to mute yourselves, or if you're able to do so, that we don't get any background noise. I have two other very important reminders. First, every time you speak, you must state your name and title for the record. Second, you must be careful not to speak over each other so that anyone who's listening can hear what's being said, and that we have a clear recording of the meeting. For this reason, it's necessary when it comes time for the commission members to comment and ask questions about a particular agenda item before taking any action, and then to vote on that agenda item. Our town planner, Maureen Giusti, will call the roll as needed. Also, the regular meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on the town's website. I'm now going to ask Maureen to take the attendance by roll call. Thank you.
Okay, can we just ask if I see that Commissioner Legnani is on the phone, can we just ask to make sure that he can hear us?
Yes, Commissioner Legnani, can you hear us?
Indeed, I can.
Okay, all right, you're a little muffled, so but we'll take that as a yes, okay?
Okay,
I can hear you,
All right, that's a lot
Chairwoman.
better. That's a lot better, thank you.
okay, thank you very much for that.
No problem.
John Michael O'Brien,
Excuse.
Sandra Coppola,
Here.
Diane Jorsey,
Here.
Timothy Zigmont, Brian Rogan,
Here.
Steve Woolman,
Here.
Chairman Bailey,
Here.
Peter Zaragoza, alternate, asked to be excused.
Yes.
Andrew Legnani, alternate,
It's on Zoom.
just confirmed he was there.
Yeah, Andrew, you're there, right? We're taking a roll call?
Yes, I hear you. 4x4.
Thank you.
And Steve Biella Jr., alternate.
Because John Michael O'Brien is excused, I'm going to ask that Steve Biella, would you please be seated for him for the commission meeting? Thank you. All right, we have the review of the minutes as the first portion, and I do see that we had, it looked like May 20th.
That was
I think
not
it
in
was
there.
an
It was a
error.
mistake.
Okay,
Yeah.
so crossing that out, proceed down to November 4th, 2021, which we all received. Did we have a chance to go through the minutes of the last meeting? Were there any corrections that need to be noted at this time? Okay, as written, Mr. Zigmont has the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Wallman. Thank you for the discussion. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved. Commissioner on business, in accordance with the 824 of the Connecticut General Statutes, review and recommendation of the matter of construction sidewalks within the town's right of way is shown on the sidewalk project town of Berlin map. I received this, but I didn't really receive any information on where these sidewalks were going.
Okay, so you'll look on the sidewalk plan that was included in your package. I had it up. Let me see if it's still up on my computer. So it's that's a sidewalk projects plan that's been worked on for some time by the Department of Public Works, as well as the Economic Development and Planning Office, and developing a sidewalk plan for upgrades and connections where there's missing pieces, as explained in the town council agenda item that was distributed with that. I try not to reinvent the wheel by doing a second summary, because usually that's a pretty thorough one. They are substantially being, if not completely being, funded through grant funding that the town has. We've had consulting engineers hired or will be hired to do the design and survey of them. And this is an 824 referral back to you from the town council for it. I do have lifelines ready and waiting with Jim Mahoney and Mike Ahern. If needed, I can contact them to hop on.
Okay, well, basically what we're looking at is some improvements, Farmington Avenue, Four Rod Road, Norton Road. Is Norton Road more toward where the schools are, like Willard and?
Let me pull up the side if you don't mind.
All the way up by Castlewood, Cole Lane.
I believe it's the filling in the spaces that are missing where there are improvements already. So yes, by the schools, wherever they are missing, and make those further connections.
Okay, and then Newton Street, Langdon Court. Okay. Pretty much encompasses, yeah, Colleen. So it looks like this is kind of putting those pieces together.
PDF of sidewalks that I'd like to share because it's a much better quality than you have. And that's what I went over with Jim, if I can get it. And I can't. Oh. Not loading, or yeah, it's not loading the same plan I had. So the project involves sidewalk improvements on Farmington Avenue, Four Rod Road, Norton Road, Newton Street, Langdon Court, as shown on the concept plan that was provided. However, that concept plan unfortunately is not loading for me the way.
Well, it isn't 824, so it's something that they're just sort of looking for the commission's blessing to proceed with the project.
And to fill in the gaps according to a plan that was, has been established. It is an established plan for sidewalk improvements that has been worked on by multiple agencies for some time, and with funding coming from grant sources.
Commission, any questions or concerns? Is there a motion to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the section 824 referral.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jorsey. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Woolman. Thank you. Okay. No further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so moved. Item B, in accordance with section 824 of the Connecticut General Statutes, review and recommendation of the matter of constructing an engineer control on 889 Farmington Avenue, is shown as engineer drawings entitled Addendum to approve part 1 and 2 applications for engineer control variance dated January 24th, 2020, prepared by Lorero. Okay, save me on that one. And this is 824 also.
Yes, it is. So this is, as most of you are aware, and possibly all of you, when 889 Farmington Avenue was acquired, it was a brownfield site by the town. It now has the development that is ongoing there for Newport, mixed use TOD development that's well underway. It's still in town control right now because until the liner, which is, well, we commonly call the liner, the engineered control is synonymous with the term for liner, which is the term we usually hear, where the property needs to be capped in order to then continue the construction on top of it. This is to proceed with that and allowing Newport to install the infrastructure where they need to prior to that liner being installed, and then move forward with the project. Again, I have the lifeline of the engineered control expert for our department, which would be Jim Mahoney, available if I need him. However, I think you're all familiar with the fact that through all the reviews for that project, both as we acquired the property, as the town moved forward with approvals for the different aspects of the property, this subject has come up on numerous occasions, but now we're at the point where contracts and physical work needs an 824 for it.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve 824
okay, thank you.
and 889 Farmington Avenue.
All right, thank you, Mr. Woolman. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, second by Mr. Woolman. Further discussion, questions? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. All right, on to scheduling public hearings. We have a special site plan, a special permit site plan amendment for James Meehan Window Restorations of Connecticut LLC for a contractor's shop for a window fabrication operation at 600 Four Rod Road, Unit 7. You have a suggested date of December 2nd for the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have
So
a
moved to December 2nd.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zigma. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ms. Dorsey. Further discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So moved. Item B, zone change request of 550 to 554 Berlin Turnpike Associates LLC to change the zone of a map 10-2, block 83, lot 13B, 502 Berlin Turnpike. Map 10-2, block 83, lot 13, 522 Berlin Turnpike, and map 10-2, block 83, lot 14, 554 Berlin Turnpike from the Berlin Turnpike 1, the BT1 zone, to the Berlin Turnpike Development, the BTD zone. Suggested date is the 16th of December.
So if I may,
Yeah.
you will recall that you at previous meeting voted to obtain third-party review for this application being a BTD application, and therefore we have yet to schedule the hearing. The consultants that we're hoping to contract with, I expect if that all gets wrapped up very quickly, then they can, then the 16th would be adequate time to get reviews out and disseminated to the commission and have the public hearing at that date.
Okay. But if they don't see themselves on that timeline, are they gonna let us know in advance?
They will let me know in advance, as well as I believe left that sheet downstairs, but I believe we might need an extension should we wait beyond that date, because the January meeting, there's only one January meeting currently scheduled, and that's towards the end of January. So it's a long wait to when we have a 65-day timeline to open the public hearing unless a extension is granted.
Okay. Commissioners,
Okay, move to schedule public hearing for December 16th.
okay, thank you, Ms. Dorsey, has the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Woolman. Okay, thank you.
That's one thing.
Yeah,
I
further
heard some
discussion.
people here trying to listen to you, they can't hear you.
Oh, I'm
Can we
sorry.
pull one of the mics quick?
I didn't realize that one wasn't here. It usually is moved.
It usually is
Yeah,
next
sorry
week.
about that, folks.
The bishop's on vacation.
You haven't missed too much right now. No, we're just trying to follow through.
Okay, let me just move it a little further because we're gonna get backfeed from the tape recorder. Okay, hopefully not too much backfeed. Can you hear me now? Hopefully. Huh. I'll try harder. Oh, look at that.
No,
Oop.
no, that works, that works. Okay,
And if I may, the second item there, the C is related to A, it's the special permit and site, to B, it's the special permit and site plan for that same project, 550 to 554 Berlin Turnpike Associates.
all right, so
Do you have a motion?
we already have the motion on the floor. We have a second by Mr. Woolman, so I guess we'll just vote on the B and then we'll just vote on the C, okay? Unless you guys want to withdraw your motions and then combine them both to schedule both of those items on the 16th, up to you. Favor of the commission. Move the vote, okay. So we're voting on item B. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So moved. Item C, special permanent site plan application 550 to 554 Berlin Turnpike Associates LLC for a mixed development including 106 residential units within 3 buildings, a retail building, and reconfiguring the parking lot for 2 commercial buildings at 502, 522, and 554. And this is also subject to the suggested date of the 16th of December. Do I have a motion?
I will make a motion to schedule the public hearing for December 16th.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jorsey.
Second.
Second, Mr. Woolman. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Okay, on to scheduling public hearings. Back, excavation permit of Stancon LLC for the excavation of 1,970 cubic yards, 0.2 acres at lot 17-2-133-10, Berlin Street, East Berlin. Suggested date says to be determined.
So we did get in this application, however, all the materials weren't submitted with it. They've been coming in over the last week. So I had hesitancy to recommend scheduling it for the 16th. However, given the timeline of needing to open by 65 days, I'm asking that you'll allow me to schedule it when we're comfortable with the comments that we're getting, that we have the information to go out to the interdepartmentally, as well as comments back, so that you have adequate information before we schedule it.
So no action at this time by the commission is required.
Or I would actually ask that you allow me to put it on the calendar if it is ready to be scheduled for the 16th, that we can move forward with the 16th, but no, understanding that that might have to get moved.
Do you need that in a motion?
You can either move to have staff schedule it. That would be great, because then it's more formal, or you can move to schedule it and we can unschedule it if necessary, or ask for an extension if necessary.
I'll make a motion to schedule public hearing for the excavation permit, date to be determined by staff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Woolman. Do we have a
Second.
second? Do we have a second by Ms. Dorsey? Further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved. You guys at the other end now, and I want you to, don't, I want you in there, you know? We're right to the good stuff. All right, on to new business. We have a site plan amendment of Kevin Budney overhaul and repair for construction of a building, driveway, stormwater management system, and wetlands mitigation area at 2061 Berlin Turnpike. Oh. There you go. Terrific. Are you Mr. Budney?
For the record, my name is Joe Perugini with Weston and Sampson
Okay.
on behalf of Mr. Budney.
All right, welcome. And what do we have here?
Thank you. Again, Joe Perugini, professional engineer with Weston and Sampson. We have an office in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. The plan that I have, obviously you can't see it, but in your plan set, it would be sheet 205. It's an overall site plan. Again, we're here on behalf of the applicant and owner, Kevin Budney, of Budney Overhaul and Repair. We're seeking a site plan approval for a proposed shipping and distribution building. On the property, it would be located in the northeast corner. This property is at 2061 Berlin Turnpike. It does have frontage on the Berlin Turnpike, but it's connected with other properties associated with the facility. It's in the BT1 zone, and a lot of folks may recognize it as the former driving range. Currently, the development is to be located in the northeast corner because it would be situated adjacent to the existing facility and parking. It's going to serve the existing facility, which manufactures aerospace components and products. And this is a 5,000 square foot building for only for the purpose of shipping and distribution. So it's going to have 4 overhead doors, a couple of man doors that face the north side. The pavement associated with it is only what's required for a driveway and for trucks to be able to maneuver into and up to the overhead doors. Along the southern border of the property,
I don't move that. I might be partially in your way. I might be partially in the way, I'm sorry. And I brought up the plan sheets on the board, but obviously his is in color and a little more detailed.
On this plan, north is to the right, and the Berlin Turnpike is along the top of the page to help orient yourself. And then you can't really see it, but along the left side of the page, which would be the southern border of the property, there's a strip of land that is between the southern property line and New Park Drive. You can't really see it there, but it's kind of sandwiched between New Park Drive and the southern border. That area itself is all wetlands, or mostly wetlands, and it's wooded. But you can see within the middle of the property, we have red lines which indicate there's wetland soils that extend through there. And it has been developed in the past, but the wetland soils are there. So because where the proposed development is, a portion of it, the intent was to keep it obviously away from the wetland soils, but some of it is causing that disturbance. So this went before the Inland Wetland Commission. It was presented, and to compensate for that disturbance of the wetland soils, we propose to recreate an equal amount, as you can see there in the southeast corner. So that is better suited and located against to mitigate what's being disturbed. But it's also closer to an existing and better functioning wetland area. So that was approved at the last wetland meeting. As far as the development, I gave you kind of the specifics. In brown is the building. It's a 5,000 square foot building. There's not a whole lot to it. It's fairly simple. It's connecting to the existing parking lot. There's no new parking required because there's a surplus of parking already there. So the 2 spaces that technically would be required for this would be used in that existing parking lot to the north. As far as the setbacks, it complies with the adjacent building setbacks, and those are met. You can't really see it along the north side or front of the building. There's an 8-foot wide concrete apron that's going to be flush with the pavement. There's no site lighting required, just some building mounted fixtures. Those will be shielded. So because we're proposing some added impervious area, you got the roof runoff and the pavement runoff, we're going to offset that by having it drain towards the south or rear side of the building. It's just going to flow overland into, you can kind of see it's graded. It looks like a depression. It's a pre-treatment sediment torbay. That will slow the runoff down. It will treat it. It will create a little bit of detention as well. And then the runoff will have to pass through a stone filter berm before it continues, as it would naturally flow towards the west and south. It's about a 1 acre area of work. So we're gonna obviously propose sediment controls. We usually like to double up our measures with a silt fence back to compost filter tubes. That is kind of the new, the requirements that Connecticut Deep is going for whenever you're have steep slopes or within an upland review or have a nearby wetland area. And certainly there'll be an anti-tracking pad to help reduce sediment from being tracked onto the parking lot and adjacent road. And then to complete the project, the area of disturbance will all be stabilized with topsoil and seeded for turf establishment. And then eventually the next set of permitting would be during construction for a building permit. I believe the builder is here as well, in case you have comments on the building. But that ends my presentation. I'd like to open it up for questions.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Maureen.
So I want to clarify for the commission that in your packet, you have town engineer comments. Those are inadvertently put in for this application. They were the comments for Budney's last review that you've already seen. And for in addition to his existing building, however, the wetlands review and approval was included in your packet dated November 10th, signed by James Corbel. And so confirming that. We did not have architectural plans to review, and so I hope their builder may they be able to present to you what they have with regard to that, or I would suggest they get held off to show us those. I don't have comments from the town engineer at this point. One recommendation is that when the error was found on the two conflicting or two separate applications, he didn't have time to prepare written comments. He did say that he recalled looking at it and would, he believes that there was nothing outstanding that couldn't be resolved, but would be open to it returning to the commission if he did find something that needs to be resolved.
So the engineer is at this point satisfied, but he's gonna take a closer look at it.
Yes.
Finds anything, he's gonna wear this to it.
Right,
All right.
that's what
As
he,
far as, as far as the architecturals and what's gonna be with the building, is also part of this.
so I think he said that the architect was here. As the,
Right. But before he, all right, is there any questions at this point from the commission?
Not being the architect, I'll just give you a brief overview. It's a sloping roof. It'll all slope to one side, which is how we're going to pick up the roof runoff. It'll be directed overland to that forebay that I mentioned earlier. That top view is the north side of the building. On the plan, it's facing to the right. So there are your 4 overhead doors. I think the building height it's below the maximum 22 feet. It's the 2 man doors facing the north side.
All right, so what is the pattern as far as the truck travel goes? So how are they gonna enter into the site?
So they will enter the site on New Park Drive. You can see that on the plan. That's the existing driveway of the adjacent facility.
Okay.
They'll use that existing driveway, head north or to the right, take a left into that parking lot, and then turn down into the proposed driveway, which is the darker pavement color.
I'm trying to, with the hand.
Yeah.
So this is New Park Drive over here. This is the existing driveway this is the existing driveway into Budney. With their facility, their main facility right now is over here. There's an existing parking lot at the far north end of their site, and the driveway into this addition or this new building would be off of that driveway.
Along the park, is it pretty much like just regular vegetation growth there along that way? It's like,
Oh yeah, along the southern border. Here.
no, when you come in onto the park, is that heavily vegetated there along that road? Or is it pretty exposed?
This is New Park.
Okay,
You're talking, is it vegetated here
no,
or here?
there, the driveway.
Yes, there's a fair amount of existing. They're not going to be disturbed. The development is lower in elevation, so the driveway is going to slope down. So this building will be lower than this parking lot here. There's several feet. 5, 6 feet lower than the parking lot.
And the hours of operation are pretty much Monday through Friday, or
That's right.
okay, just regular business hours as opposed to?
Excuse me.
No, yeah, they tend to be Monday through Saturday, probably two shifts. That building probably will not be used during hours after evening hours, nighttime hours. Shipping is minimal, but it's basically a place to store their parts, finished parts, and then they carry, ship them out afterwards. Right now, they have no room in their facility for storage of finished materials, finished parts.
All right, and just because you're addressing the commission, I
Yes.
just need to know
Yeah.
your name and address for the record. If you
Sure.
can come, if you can come
Okay.
forward, do you mind?
Yeah.
It's just that we want to keep a.
And just for everyone's, I brought up the aerial view. So you can see coming in New Park Drive, if I can, while they're getting situated. Coming in New Park Drive, this is the existing Budney driveway with this vegetation along here. Straight in this way to this new parking lot and the new facility. Am I about right in that? Right about there. So. And if I was to pull up, let me just, the zoning map, you'll see it is BT1 there, but their facility is in the industrial zone.
Yeah.
So,
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. That's right, I brought you up
Waiting
there.
for my cue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. For the record, my name is Jonathan Festa. I'm with Pelletier Builders. We've designed the building. We've been working with Kevin for last couple of years on this project. And I think you know he has other plans in the future. I'm located at 138 Main Street in Coventry, Connecticut.
Thank you. Go ahead. Is there anyone on the commission who has any questions at this point?
Maureen, do you have any concerns or comments?
I do not, it is a site plan application, not subject to special permit criteria, so it's pretty cut and dry as far as meeting criteria. I do want to point out that you also have a letter in your packet from Chris Edge. I don't believe he's on the meeting. I can stop sharing and make sure. Oh, he's here. He's actually here.
Yeah, I know. The other thing too is we want to look at signage, or is there going to be any lighting?
The lighting is, as Joe described, it's only going to be down lighting in the building.
Okay.
There won't be any parking lighting or street lighting.
Okay. All right, and we do have a letter or communication from Chris Edge and this application as well.
I got one question. This
Yes.
building go, I mean, I got a flat looking building there. Is this building, the outside of the building, similar material as the building, the other
Yes.
product?
Similar material and similar color.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Yes. Is it okay for us to just make note of Mr. Edge's letter of support, or do we have to have our secretary read it into record?
It was included, so it does not need to be read.
All right, so do we have any other questions or concerns or comments from the commission?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay. All right. Okay, we have Mr. Fayella. And do we have further discussion?
Just clarifying, the motions are subject to staff comments.
Okay, so amending the motion, amending the second. Okay.
Including in the comments of the town engineer.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So move the motion. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you. It'll be a nice project. Okay, next up is the site plan amendment of John Rollo on behalf of NC Barber Academy, 1427 for a
Can you-
long-term site.
Can you both sign the sign-in sheet if you didn't already?
Sure.
Thank you. So our secretary can put the names in. understanding this parcel, I brought the next application's parcel up first before I bring up any of the application materials, just so I think that's easier for everyone to. If like me to share something different, I will.
Perfect. Hey, welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Torello, an architect and planner from Cheshire, Connecticut. I'm here today to actually turn this thing on its side a little bit. Normally, we would be making a big, no, not in a bad way. Normally, we'd be making the whole, what is known in the business as the dog and pony show, and present you with all of the drawings and everything. Unfortunately, we do have a problem that is the tail wagging the dog. If we don't mind some of the cliches that I'm going to be using a minute here. The comments from staff have been right on. We agree with all of that, and we will comply with all of them. And we're trying to straighten out what the prior approval covered. We want to make sure that the prior approval covered the proper parts of the building and the site. I think inadvertently, the site plan, which was the original site plan, when the back part of the building was built, it was done on a survey, so that was submitted for that approval. Unfortunately, the back part of the building, which was demolished and didn't exist at that time, was whited out on that survey. So we were worried that the approval for the special permit and the result of the text change to the regulations to allow the vocational school only applied to that front section. And as a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. The front section is the barber shop, which is allowed by the regulations, but it had a room that was pointed out by the staff that was being used for instruction and practice, as they call it. So therefore, it was understandable that was included that way. Unfortunately, because the licensing procedure for MC requires you to have an address, when he came to discuss this with staff and this commission, it appeared to assume that the vocational academy was going to be located in the front section. So that was approved at that point. To prove the point, if you drive up Berlin Turnpike coming towards the site, you'll see there's a billboard that is not in the name of MC Barber Academy. It's the name of MC Barber Shop. So it's a separate but allied facility. So normally in cases like this, you would have a primary use on a site and an accessory. Now, the accessory use is the larger one. That's what he came in for by name. So that's why this happened this way. So we just want to make sure that the modification that we're coming in for now doesn't apply to a whole new site plan review. We want to use the existing site and the existing building footprint at this point, because I think they have the right to use that at this point, as long as they're able to reconstruct part that was demolished. So the elephant in the room is really one of the conditions of approval that we need to address by going to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And that is the fact, if construction is still underway, do we have to remove the storage container on the site, which has been popularly called a shipping container. Of course, our argument would be that if it's not used for shipping, it's not a shipping container. Now they're used as storage containers. So the question is, can it stay on the site temporarily? Because construction has not been completed. And as a matter of fact, the academy which was approved, hasn't even started yet. Other than the fact that we're doing the drawings, the final drawing. So that's an issue before the Board of Zoning Appeals. So what I would ask at this point is that if we table this application for the full presentation so that we can get all these issues together and present a final set of drawings, because we're revising them as we're going along. We're short-circuiting this process. We're not providing preliminary drawings with the site plan. We're going right into construction drawings at this point in time. But so we want to make sure we can meet all the requirements that the staff has pointed out and resolve it in that way and give you the final plan. Basically, I can show you what we've changed.
Well, as you said, we're gonna be, you're hoping to get the whole presentation together and then revisit.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to see the scope of it, I just, give you a quick idea of what it's going to look like, so you know what we're talking about here.
Can I try to, because I'm not really understanding what issue is being raised right now. My understanding, scheduling this item for a site plan amendment was last year. Sorry, I don't have the date in front of me. MC Barber Academy was approved after a text amendment that allowed for vocational schools to be located at this site with a special use permit, as a special permit use, with the understanding that they got approval, site plan approval based upon the existing building that was there. And with the understanding that when they came back for any rebuilding at the time that they were going to rebuild on the existing concrete pad that was left after the building had a fire, it would come back for site plan approval for that added square footage, because that square footage is now gone. I believe the applicant, Mr. Torello, is maintaining that they could rebuild on that foundation without planning and zoning commission approval for a site plan. That's not what I found to have ever been the case in looking back through the planning and zoning commissions.
No, I don't.
Reviews.
I don't question that.
Oh, okay.
I was
so
looking
so
for
they-
that in the regulations. I didn't find it. I didn't.
So
Most
we-
regulations do have percentage demolished and what have you. Can't be. At a
so
certain point, can't be.
So evidently, we already resolved that back in my office some time ago. I thought we had before he made this application, which is why he made this application for a site plan amendment that doesn't include the special permit, because the special permit use was already approved for the property with the understanding that they would be presumably expanding the site plan square footage with the rebuilding at the appropriate time. So coming in for a site plan amendment to rebuild, and I believe it to be 2 phases, or interpret it to be 2 phases. They got the certificate of occupancy for that first phase. So therefore, the construction ceased at that time until they get approval for moving into the second phase, which is rebuilding on the concrete pad. And therefore, it's not under construction right now. Thus the shipping container issue.
Now to go back to what the applicant is requesting, he's actually requesting that we not basically open discussion at this point, and that we table the matter until you can get all the ducks in the row, so to speak.
Yes.
All right, so, all right,
We'll be ready. We will be ready by the December 2nd meeting with everything.
oh, happy days. Our meeting in December.
Oh, I know, I understand. Having been one in my lifetime. Maureen's job is, it's the same thing I've done for many years.
To continue it, I was just looking at the calendar to make sure that that's within the 65 days. It is within the 65 days. The application was officially received at the first November meeting. So you have plenty of time.
To push the site plan amendment, John Torello, on behalf of MP Barber at 1427 Brum Turnpike, December 2nd. meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? A second. Oh, Ms. Capola. Oh, wow. This is- Here she goes. Good for you. Yeah, good. You're good. Start. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, so moved.
Thank you for your consideration.
Yes. no
Hope to have
problem.
everything ready for the next meeting.
All right. All right, we're gonna move into the public hearing. So the first is the text amendment, acting town planner, Warren Juicy, for a moratorium on the cannabis uses.
So I'll recap because this is actually the public hearing. And while this has been discussed at previous meetings, and most specifically, the meeting with the joint meeting that the Planning and Zoning Commission had with the town council on, I believe it was September 9th. As based on direction from that meeting, staff has prepared a moratorium for cannabis uses as allowed by the 2021 legislation. And in doing so, we've found how to put moratorium into the regulations so that they actually they are supposed to be a regulation change and an amendment to the regulations, and there's really no spot for them. In the past, they've just been kind of put in the front or the back of the book. We are proposing to make a space for them. And that would be under the general, under permitted and prohibited uses, have the permitted uses, the way the wording currently is, and then add B, moratorium. And then each time a moratorium is enacted, it would be placed under that section. And then the wording for the moratorium was crafted in conjunction with Corporation Council based on a lot of research on how to properly word this to comply with the state statutes, as well as to provide the thoughtful reasoning, which includes the fact that our regulations are being looked at currently as we undertake the plan of conservation and development with partial analysis of the existing regulations and looking to do some updates based on current legislation.
So, do we need, yes, go ahead.
Kind of comment. Maureen, could you clarify or confirm that cannabis establishments as defined by the Public Act does not include hemp, permitted hemp properties? I just don't want to have a moratorium in place that would affect or impact already.
I don't believe it does. I believe they're clear. However, I might suggest you put in that motion that the existing allowed businesses are not affected by this moratorium.
And then the effective date of the year probably should be 2022.
Probably, but again, we put the space in, but that's awesome that you checked that you got that. And yeah, so we need a start date and we'll calculate out that. So it would become effective the day after we file it in the town clerk's office. And so you direct me, it's a date to start. Presumably if it was to be today, then we would do our best to post it tomorrow, which would make it effective on Monday.
And so the start date and how long would the moratorium be for?
We're suggesting 9 months based on some discussions that were had, as well as the analysis that's underway. Moratorium can be extended if you so choose. And
Conservation development, we just don't know where it's all going to fall.
right, that seemed to be a reasonable period of time to come up with without it being arbitrarily lengthy or too short, shorter than we thought could be managed. And given, well, even tonight, the number of things that are moving down each month, we want to make sure we have enough time as well.
Exactly. All right, because this is in the public hearing, I guess if there's anyone here who wishes to address this text amendment, that would be the time.
Sorry, I stopped sharing my screen. I inadvertently didn't have all that
I don't
on
know if
screen.
there's anyone online who wishes to comment Okay, hearing none, turning to the commission. Any other comments from the commission?
Motion approved.
Okay, all right, motion to approve by Mr. Sigma.
We need to have in the motion the months and the existing businesses are not.
Oh, when the start
package.
date. Yeah,
That date.
yeah. And also
Does not affect the
existing
existing.
businesses. Is that satisfied?
So I'm going to put in, if that's all right, 9 months from the immediate posting of this approval. And with the motion including the exception of existing permitted uses related to hemp.
That's good. And so the motion goes to Mr. Zigmont. Do we have a second?
I'll second the
All
motion.
right, thank you, Mr. Rogan. Further discussion? And all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, so moved.
We've just made a mistake. I'm sorry. You had to close the public hearing and then you have to make a motion to approve.
Oh, my God. All right, we have a motion to close the public hearing.
Good thing I have a spreadsheet.
Make motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion on closing. And all those in favor? Aye. Those so moved. No,
Make a motion to approve. That was
already discussed.
discussed already.
Okay, Mr. Zigmont, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rogan. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, so moved.
Was that it right this time? All right.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't put that fast.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Rogan to read the call for the public hearings. Public news.
Town of Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing notice. The Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearings at its regular meeting on Thursday, November 18th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Town Council Chambers, Berlin Town Hall, 247 Road, Berlin, Connecticut. Interested parties may join the meeting and participate in the public hearings in person or remotely by video or telephone as provided below. The following public hearings will be held at which time and opportunity will be given to those who wish to be heard relative to the following applications. We're going to be starting with B because we already did A, which is the text amendment act of town planner, morning juice tea moratorium on cannabis use, and that was open to the public. And now we are at B, the special permit / site plan application of Little House Living LLC to develop 16 single unit buildings and 2 duplex buildings for a total of 20 dwelling units with Berlin zoning regulations, 6 DD planned residential infill development at 16176 Berlin Turnpike. And after that, we'll go to C, special permits / site plan applications of 1897 for Alta equipment for construction equipment dealer use per Berlin zoning regulations. 6, correction earlier was 11. 6G.3W and related site improvement at 1897 Berlin Turnpike. Applications and related meeting materials are available at the Planning and Zoning Department, Berlin Town Hall, 240 Kensington Road, Berlin, Connecticut. Brian Rogan, Secretary, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so item B, we'll start off there. Special permit site plan application of Little House Living LLC to develop 16 single unit buildings for a total of 20 dwellings per the Berlin zoning regulations. And it's 11 BG, planned residential infill development at 1676 Berlin Turnpike. Okay. Hi, Sullivan. How are you doing today?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Attorney Tim Sullivan on behalf of the applicant, Little House Living LLC. Here tonight with me to present the application is Patrick Snow. He's a developer. We have Jim Cassidy, the engineer, and I believe virtually is Brian Miller. We can maybe get a recognition from Brian.
I'm here.
Oh,
That white haired guy.
former town planner. The application is for a special permit to redevelop the Efficiency Units Motel at the south end of Worthington Ridge, where it intersects with the Berlin Turnpike. I submitted an assessor card which has pictures of the current site. Yeah, I think everybody's familiar with it. It's a very small little block, brick structures on the west side of the Berlin Turnpike, just south of Worthington Ridge. The application is pursuant to the newly adopted planned infill residential development regulation that this commission adopted on May 6, 2021. That's section 11DD of the special regulations. I think the only person who sitting tonight that wasn't here at that point would have been Commissioner Coppola. Everybody voted except for, I think, Commissioner Dorsey, who was at some of the public hearings. I think maybe missed one and didn't vote, but it was supported unanimously. Commissioner Rogan moved it to bring in the infill development, and Commissioner Wallman seconded the motion. This is the, just to recap, maybe a brief history of it. The purpose of the planned residential infill development, the intent is to provide an economic incentive for the redevelopment of these existing motel properties along the Berlin Turnpike that some date to the 1920s and 1930s. This particular development was from the 1950s. The section provides a whole set of standards and procedures for the design and development of these roughly 1,000 square foot structures. I'll leave Jim Cassidy to explain some of the more detailed elements of the proposal. Before we review the proposal, I just want to confirm for the record that the mailing and sign notice compliance was filed with the town earlier this week. And also earlier today, updated earlier submission, Brian Miller prepared an affordability plan, which is required under the infill development regulations. That was tweaked just a little bit. His original affordability plan showed 20 single-family units. It's actually 16 single-family structures and 2 duplex structures. The number of units remains the same. Number of dwelling units remains the same at 20. And then I also submitted a revised architectural drawing for the duplex units. There were no changes to the engineering of the duplex units. It's just that the earlier architectural drawing for the duplex units did not have a title block on it, so we just wanted to clean that up. Some of the specifics of the proposal. The proposal is sitting in front of you here. You can see where there's going to be a circular pattern for the 20 dwelling units. The applicant Little House Living is proposing to develop the 16 freestanding single-family units, which will be 2 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms, and 2 duplex units, which will also be 2 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms. A total of 30% of the units, or 6 units, will be designated as affordable housing units. And as I stated, an affordable housing plan has been submitted and it's been revised. The architectural drawings have been submitted. The property is currently occupied by 5,248 square feet of motel consisting of 10 buildings with an existing parking lot capable of 11 parking vehicles. It is expected that the proposed residential housing project will be occupied or visited by 30 to 40 on a daily basis. The plan provides for 2 parking spots per unit and 1 parking space being a garage space. The proposed residential development is projected to generate 237 trips a day. All of these traffic is provided by Scott Heskins' traffic report, which was submitted with the application. It was actually more than the regulation required. The regulation requires a traffic statement. Unless the commission thought a more detailed traffic report was necessary, the developer submitted a complete traffic report for the commission. Proposed residential
development is supported by the existing infrastructure of the town, provides appropriate landscaping and screening, is designed to meet all emergency access requirements, is in harmony with existing neighborhoods, and meets the dimensional and development standards of the regulations. The application is also consistent with the plan of conservation development, which I think is important, very important. Most of the new housing developments along the Berlin Turnpike for the last few years have been set back quite a bit from the road. This will actually be a housing development that's set right up on the road. It will be subject to the Berlin Turnpike design guidelines, that's for lighting and other things. Really, as the plan of conservation and development stated, what we're trying to do with the Berlin Turnpike is to refurbish some of these older, dated projects into a more cachet type of housing project, and a more permanent, stable housing development. At this time, it's also going to provide affordable housing and housing diversity, all which will house positive town. At this time, I will turn it over to Jim Cassidy to review the engineered drawings and other calculations related to the proposal.
Could I interject? Can I just remind the applicant to leave your presentation drawings? Both would be great. Thanks.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jim Cassidy, professional engineer principal with the firm of LLC Pearson and Cassidy, located at 630 Main Street in Cromwell, Connecticut. Here today representing Little Houses House Living LLC. As Tim Sullivan had mentioned, the property that we are seeking a permit to develop is located at 1676 Berlin Turnpike. The first sheet I have up is an aerial Google photo of the site. The site itself outlined in yellow, as mentioned, was an existing motel site. The overall site area consists of about 1.899 acres. It is situated about 250 feet north of Meadow Lane, the intersection of Meadow Lane. Property is presently zoned BT. As was mentioned, there presently are two larger buildings to the front. One is an office building, and then this one here, we also have some residential units in it. In addition to, there are 9 small residential or hotel units. This would be your westerly boundary line. So you have the 5-1 westerly, you have another 3 over here, so a total of 8 residential units. Presently, when you access the site, there are 3 curb cuts. There's one down here to the south, there's one in the center, and there's one down here to the north. The entire frontage of the site is pretty much paved. You come into the site and there's a large island in the center. The circumference of the island provides access to those hotel units. Grade topography, the elevations range at I would say pretty gentle to moderate grade. The high point is here at the southerly corner of the site, southerly corner of the frontage, elevation 135. The entire site slopes westerly direction, slight northerly direction, where it drops off about elevation 127. So there's about 8 feet total pitch across this entire property, but the majority of it's at a very gradual grade as it goes into that westerly direction. It is presently circumferenced by a evergreen hedgerow along the westerly boundary and along the southerly boundary. In addition to, there's some deciduous trees and some evergreens along the northerly boundary, but the majority of those are actually off the site. As Tim had mentioned, we're here before you this evening as we're seeking a permit under the recently adopted development regulations through DD Plan Residential Infill Development, which falls under Section 11 DD of the zoning regulations. What we're seeking to do is to remove all the existing buildings and units on the property. In its place, we're looking to construct 16 new small single-family residential houses.
Jim, can I just stop you for a quick second?
Sure.
The buildings are still there?
The buildings are still there.
The buildings are gone. So I guess my first question is, before we go any further, was that done with town's approval, or was it just done?
They did get permits.
That's why, because when he's saying they're still there and they're not, I wanted to make sure it's done properly. Thank you.
Permits have been issued for demolition.
Thank you. Okay, no problem. Thank you for correcting me. So at this point, the site is cleared, and we're looking at redeveloping it with a series of single-family and 2 duplex houses. You'll see the light brown rectangles on the plan shown basically along the northerly and then down along this westerly boundary line in the center here, and then there's some down on the south. The smaller rectangles are the single-family units. The single-family units have a total living area of slightly over 900 square feet. In addition to, they'll have a 1-car garage associated with them. There's a total of 16 of the single-family units proposed on this site. In addition to, you'll see the 2 larger rectangles. These are the duplex units. They actually are just a single units brought together, having a common wall. So the 2 duplex units for a total of 4 units. Overall, there would be a total of 20 new living units on the property. Under the regulation, the way the regulation works is you're allowed to have 1 living unit for every 4,000 square feet of land area. If you do the math, the property works out to be 1.89 acres, which if you put into square feet, it actually works out to about 20.6 units in total that would be permitted under the new regulation. The access to the site, as Tim had mentioned, and as I mentioned, presently, basically, there's 3 curb cuts across the entire frontage as it exists today. The south and the north go away. We reconstruct the one to the center. It's a single access point, 2-way driveway into the center. There's a larger island within the center, loops around 4 units in the center. And then the remaining units are around the perimeter of that loop road with an additional island providing access to the duplex units. The units themselves would be raised slightly, so all drainage from the units actually goes back towards, the driveways go back towards the roadway itself. You flip one more page. Plans we submitted a storm drainage management plan. And on this site, again, with all the units that we're on and all the paved areas, as I mentioned before, everything's kind of running off in a westerly direction, and a slight northerly direction. Today, when you look at it, there's no controls for stormwater runoff. There's no controls for stormwater quality. Everything that goes on the ground just runs off. As part of the new development, what we're seeking to do is incorporate new stormwater management measures. What will happen is there'll be series of 3 units. Those 3 units will tie into an underground infiltration system. So there's one infiltration system up in the front corner here. There's another one up in the front corner here. And then for the duplexes, there'll be another small infiltration unit. And then there's also one for these units in the center. The roadway, it will continue to slope in a westerly direction like the natural topography does today. At the low point of the roadway, there'll be a series of catch basins to collect the stormwater runoff. That water will be conveyed to a larger underground infiltration system. Because this is a larger drainage area going to it, there will be a positive outlet that will discharge through a level spreader and continue to the north, similar to what actually happens today. Based on stormwater modeling prepared, we find that any storm event through a 1 through 100-year event, you would find a slight decrease in flow post-development off the site. Like utilities, presently there is a water main in Berlin Turnpike. There'll be a new water service brought in along the main drive and then around the circle. Along that water drive, water main that will provide individual potable water services to each one of the new units. It will also provide a couple fire hydrants along it to provide fire protection to the units within the development. Sanitary sewers, as I mentioned, the way the property naturally grades, it goes off to the west. Presently, there's an existing sanitary lateral that goes out to the roadway out back. It is a 6-inch lateral. This lateral is going to have to be replaced with an 8-inch lateral to accommodate the units. But it will continue to go in the same direction with the new system tying into the cul-de-sac out back. All other utilities, electric, telecom, will all be underground. That we know overhead other utility services. What page did we do? We've also submitted a site landscaping plan as part of our package. As I mentioned originally, there is a pretty significant evergreen hedgerow along this westerly boundary. That hedgerow will remain as part of the project. In addition to, there are some evergreens along the south that will also be remaining. Along the northerly boundary, because the larger deciduous trees and evergreens are actually slightly off the property, we're going to be supplementing it with an additional evergreen hedgerow, consisting of a series of arborvitaes. Within the development itself, we're looking at having a series of street trees along the frontage to provide screening from the Berlin Turnpike. And then basically what we try to do is create one street tree in front of each one of the houses to give it that New England street feel with a nice ornamental tree in front of each one of the houses. In addition to, one more page. In addition to what we've done is typically want to dress up one of the units. So what we've done is we provided a page. What this is the foundation landscaping plan for each one of the units. So there's basically a palette. What it does is it makes a recommendation on shrubs and plants that we should be planted along the sidewalk and up along the driveway. There's a table on the plan with a table of plants that can be selected that be appropriate for foundation plantings for each one of the units. We typically don't like to specify the same plants for all the units throughout the development, like that a bit of a variety. That's why we create this table, and then we can work as we build each one of these houses and have a variety of plants for landscaping along the frontage. The units themselves, between them, there will be no landscaping between them. They are about 10 feet apart. There'd just be a lawn area between each one of the units. And then along the back, again, we're trying to create a barrier by leaving that existing evergreen hedgerow, and again, supplementing the additional evergreens along the northern boundary line. We also have the zoning table on the plan. These are the zoning requirements of your new PE zone. And basically the requirements are for this zone, we need to have at least the middle of the half-acre area, a maximum of 3 acres. We're at 1.89. So we exceed that requirement. For front yard, we need 40 feet. Presently, those buildings are about 7.2 feet off the front property line. We're about 42 feet off the front property line. Side yard requirement is 15. Some buildings are presently about 10.1 feet. We're going to be about 15.3. Building coverage, we have a total of 50% in zone. Under this new zone, the existing is at 6.3 for building coverage because you have less units. We will be at 18.5, but still significantly under the 50% required by the zone. And then the heights of the building. One gentleman asked me the height of the building, and didn't have the architectural plans with me at that point. But these buildings will be 2-story structures, no different than a single family residential house. The roof pitches on the houses are going to be a 6-12 pitch. They're not a steep pitch. A typical 2-story house, your overall height would be about 24 feet. So they're nothing overwhelming. They're nothing taller than the existing 2-story buildings that are out there. They're nothing taller than any 2-story house in the neighborhood that's behind us. They are very similar to what's in the neighborhood behind us. So that's basically going to conclude my presentation. The only thing I would like to bring up also is I know there's going to be concerns about the impervious coverage. What I would note is under this regulations, we're allowed to be at a total of 50%. We're actually between buildings and impervious coverage, we're significantly less than 50%. Because this is in the BT zone, the BT or the BT1 zone, if it's developed as some type of other development, such as retail auto sales, you could actually be at a total of up to 8% impervious coverage. or 50% building coverage. So this affords an opportunity to have a development with a lot less impervious coverage, which overall is better for the environment, better for the drainage. So again, with that, I conclude my presentation. I would say if you have any questions regarding the design of the building, we have the developer, Pat Snow, here with us that can answer any of those questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just ask Brian Miller if he could just go through, do a summary of his affordability plan for the commission.
Thank you, Tim. Members of the commission, pleasure to be here this evening. Am I clearly heard? I was asked to do the housing affordability plan, which is to be done in the same manner as that required by projects proposals utilizing 8-30G of the state statutes. And I've done a number of them now. And I believe they were submitted to you. There's really nothing different about this one other than the actual details about it. Is it possible that I could get share the screen?
Absolutely. I think you can just take it. If you can't, let me know.
Okay, I'll just take it.
You may have to give it back to me at the end. That's the only thing.
I know, I saw
That I
that.
may not get it next time for the next item.
Okay, is it there now?
No, let me,
All right.
okay, let me see if I have to allow it. Hold on a minute.
Well, let's see, how do I do it here? Wait, let's see, share screen. Oh, okay, I got it. I think I'll get it.
You did it?
Now,
There you go.
we have success, okay. These are some of the, I think, more important aspects to it. We have the 2021 median family income is supplied as calculated through the state offices. And you could see that Berlin's in the Hartford, West Hartford, East Hartford HMFA, that it's a slightly higher. So we use the median family income of the as a statewide. Usually the Metro Hartford kind of fluctuates around the state, but right now it's a little bit higher. So we use 102,600. Now this chart's on page 9. And we went through, this is all according to regulations here that we started with we adjusted it for that 90% adjustment for the 3 people because the state calculate, according to them, it's a 1.5 person per bedroom, which, it's kind of interesting to think about too, 1.5 persons per bedroom. But anyway, that's 3 people, 90%. What we're looking at in this chart is for that 60% income level. So we bring it down, we calculate it down to 60%. We then go to 30% to get the actual amount of housing costs that could be done annually, divided by 12. And we look at the fair market rent, which is higher than that. And so we stay with the 1385, and then we make some adjustments. Again, these adjustments are what are for the utilities and other cooking, gas, heating, electricity. These are subtracted so that it brings us down to the maximum rental level. At this point in time, would be $1,244 a month. The two determinants here, the wild cards here are the utility costs and the median average income. The median average income goes up or down, usually up every year. This was based on 2021, and next year it may be a little bit higher. And if any of these utilities are provided as part of the rent, then that's adjusted as well. So we did the same thing with the ones at 80%. and we came up with a rent level of $1,706, which is, I believe, it's pretty close to the market anyway. And then finally, in accordance with 833, we put a construction sequence together, which would require that that the ratio of affordable units and market units be obtained, be kept through the whole construction process. I know that some members of this commission may remember way back in the old days when 833 started, we had some situations where that wasn't done, and we had empty lots filled with that were the affordable lots. This obviously will not be the case, and that's according to the state law. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation. We'll take questions.
Because this is the public hearing, I think some of you might be here for this application. Now would be the time to address the commission. If you do want to address the commission, I ask that you use the podium and state your name and address for the record before your comments. Is there anyone who wants to speak? Yes. Go ahead.
I'm going to do a little housekeeping thing, if you don't mind. I'm going to try to, now that Brian stopped sharing, I'm going to try to share so we don't have that same problem we had a couple months ago. So I'm just going to try to bring this back up, make sure it shares. And if, Brian, can you confirm you can see my screen with the one of the maps on it? I'm not sure what sheet it is.
Yes.
Sheet is showing. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure. I'm gonna stop sharing again and go back to the audience. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right. Good evening. How are you?
I'm Linda Allstrand. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
48 Holly Court. And none of us in our neighborhood are very happy. So I have some stuff to read, so just bear with me. Number one, on the first page, there are some errors on the application. The lot, it says that the lot area is 1.95. According to the site plan is 1.8999 acres. In a narrative, the applicant, Little Houses Living, is proposing to develop 18 freestanding single-family dwellings. We know it's 16, it's what's on the site plan, but it's very confusing. Anyways, that's wrong, needs to be changed. Also in the narrative, a total of 30% of the units, or 6 units, will be designated affordable housing units. According to, if I've read this correctly, according to the DD planned residential infill development amendment, the application shall require 20% of the total number of units, which would be 4 units as opposed to 6. The last thing is, what is the exact name of the applicant? Front page states Little House Living, and the narrative says Little Houses. So all this needs to be changed. But anyways, we think that there's enough wrong with this application that this stuff should be corrected, before a hearing is even scheduled.
Right.
So here we are. The rest is about this new regulation. So from what I can see, the regulation was approved on May 10th. None of the following properties were given written notice of this proposed amendment, nor given written notice after it was approved. 1700 Berlin Turnpike, 48 Holly Court, and 51 Holly Court, all direct abutters. 10, 21, 27, 35, 38, and 45 Holly Court, and 225 Meadow Lane, all impacted by this change. It was only when I went to PNZ on November 15th that I was made aware of this and given a copy of this. As of today, none of us have received a copy of this new amendment in the mail. How is this even possible? PNC knows who we all are, and yet we are not officially notified of this change with the meeting tonight. The amendment scenario smacks of spot zoning and conspiracy. 1676 Berlin Turnpike went under contract to be sold in early spring. The property was surveyed at that time. This new regulation was approved on May 10th without our neighborhood being informed. The property closed in August. The old motel was demolished in late October. We received notice on the upcoming P&Z meeting early November. This amendment was specifically written for this property. This application is the first test case. My neighbors and I request that this DD planned residential infill development be declared null and void and that a new P&Z hearing be scheduled to discuss this. We have been blindsided. The commission knew that an application was in the works and would be utilizing this new amendment. Page 233 of the zoning regulation. And I quote, "The commission shall hold a public hearing on all proposed amendments to these regulations and give notice of its decisions as required by the Connecticut General Statute." Again, we had no notice of this personally. I guess it was in the paper or something. But there was not enough that any of us picked up that if we had known it was about motels, it would have piqued our interest and we would have known it would, impact us. So there again, we think this was specifically written for this particular property. The commission has failed to protect us in our properties. We are taxpayers and stakeholders in our neighborhood. By attempting to change the zone from BT1, the commission is doing the following: allowing that parcel to have a high density of residential units by squishing them onto 1.8999 acres, and allowing that parcel to go from an existing 30-foot rear buffer to a 15.5 buffer. No other Berlin zoning regulation, commercial or residential, allows for a rear buffer to be reduced. In fact, the BT1 regulation is a 50-foot rear buffer when abutting a residential neighborhood. We would actually gain a larger buffer if we had a commercial build out. The new amendment states, and I quote, "The location, orientation, scale, texture, materials, landscaping, general bulk, height, and other features shall be consistent with the characteristics of the town and the neighborhood in which the proposed development is located, and shall take into account, where appropriate, the nature of the surrounding area and the extent to which the proposed use and its features and appearances will be in harmony with the surrounding area, including property values in the neighborhood." We sure wish the commission would take the above statement to heart. The neighborhood will not look the same. We have half-acre lots and 20 units are being proposed on 1.8999 acres. The commission doesn't think this will hurt our property values. What about the property values of the commercial properties on each side of 1676? I'm almost done.
Take your time.
We are concerned about the asbestos that was found in the old motel units. Was it properly removed by asbestos removal professionals? Are there other contaminants on the property? We are requesting environmental testing of the soil. We are requesting an impact analysis to determine if the environment will be impacted adversely. We are concerned about the detrimental effects on the stream, which is part of Belcher Brook. That abuts neighbors on the north side of Holly Court. We request an inland wetlands and watercourse commission review. The topography on the cul-de-sac along with 48 Holly Court starts at 118 feet. And the land rises to 127, 128 feet right past the boundary of the abutting parcels. It then continues to 130 plus and then 135 on my side. 135 by the turnpike. So developers want to put 2 duplex on the southwest corner, which abuts number 48. One is parallel to the 1700 Berlin Turnpike side yard and is approximately 35 feet away from number 48's boundary. The other is parallel to number 48 side yard and is approximately 17 feet away from the boundary. There is potential for a huge drainage issue when the slope goes from 135 on that side down to 118 feet. Neighbors at 38 Holly are also worried because the water will continue to flow on down from number 48 to their property. The units are all 2-story and are 28.5 feet in height. These units will be very close to us and very noticeable to everybody on the street. The actual height to the peaks with the elevation starting at 127 feet on their side from the ground, plus the unit will equal 155 feet. Visually, we will see these units as being 46 feet tall. We will see 2 duplex and a minimum of 5 single dwellings from our street and properties. Our assumption is that the 2 duplexes are affordable housing. Why aren't they at the front of the property? On the stream side of the street by 51 Howie, the topography starts at 118 and goes to 124 past the boundary. We will visually see those units as being 40 feet tall. We have ranches and raised ranches on our street and in our neighborhood. We will lose property value and our sense of community. This development is in no way harmonious to our neighborhood. The worry and noise regarding this application is like a bunch of clanging cymbals in our ears. We oppose this development. We are asking for a postponement of this hearing and also request revisiting this amendment in its entirety. Our opponents have had months to work on this. We have had 2 weeks with an official notification. We are having trouble employing both a zoning attorney and a drainage engineer due either to conflicts of interest or too busy to work for us. We need more time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission at this time? Yes, sir.
I'm not a good public speaker, but my name is John Sadowski, and I own 1700 Berlin Turnpike BAC Realty. Years ago, purchased this property back in '99 because we wanted a commercial piece of property on the Berlin Turnpike. Peterbilt on the right, we have Motel, which is commercial, another piece of commercial. Being now it is being transformed into residential, I believe will hurt our property values. Some of these motels or motel little bungalows are 15 feet away from our property, which our setback on our rear building is 25 feet. And the trees bordering those, the property line there, some of the branches that swing out into our property are 25 feet and also into the other property 25 feet. Are these branches going to be into their living room? I mean, it's kind of hard to visualize that 15 feet and these trees are 25 feet wide on one side.
Just for clarification, you live to the south of the project?
No, I south, yes, I'm sorry, I'm south.
Okay. All right.
Yep. We're in a Meadow Lane, Berlin Turnpike.
Okay. All right.
To clarify, not live, right? You own the business, owns the business to the south, just for the record.
Also, there's a swale that runs along the side of our property and down into a storm drain, which we maintain. And how's that gonna be impacted? We haven't addressed anything with that swale at all in the plans. That swale actually starts the road, comes down along both properties and into our storm drain, which, like I said, we maintain. If they push the homes 15 foot or up to 25 feet away from our property line, like we have on our border, I'm okay with that. But it doesn't look like that might not happen. It's just they'll probably have to cut down a few more units. So I'm not really in favor of this. I'm along with the rest of the people.
All right, terrific, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very much. And is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
John O'Brien, Vineyard Drive. I came tonight, I haven't been at a zoning meeting quite some time. I told my wife to take a shower and go to the zoning meeting. After sitting and listening on what's going on, these people are in for profit. Put yourself in their shoes on Holly Court. Put your house on Holly Court. Watch the value go down. How can they cram all these here affordable small houses into a small area? Check with your police department. Ask them what the most crime area in Berlin is. The Berlin Turnpike. and everything. I am so opposed on profit over our citizens that pay taxes throughout the years of this town. Do not sell them out because these people would not put that in their backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Rice. I live at 38 Holly Court. My family has owned the property in which I live in since it was built in 1974. So I'm well familiar with the area in which you're talking and the hotels that were on that property. This development, and I'm sure Attorney Sullivan did not make a Freudian slip when he said housing project, is insane for our area. 20 houses on a small 1.9 parcel of land, 1.889 parcel of land. We're going to squish these people in. They said 10 feet in between the houses. So these folks are going to hear each other's dinner conversations and who's washing dishes and doing what in their house. I can't believe the town would consider putting a development like this in a residential area. Again, dropping our property values. These are going to be right in our back door. And as he said, would you put these in your backyards? This is something to consider. I mean, the town of Berlin, we are taxpayers. That development our homes have been there since the 70s. And every resident of that neighborhood has paid taxes to the town. And again, don't want to be sold out to a for-profit. Who's going to manage these properties? Is this going to be a property management company? Back to what Linda referred to as the amendment that got passed. Now, the way I understand it, if I'm looking to put an addition on my property and it's going to encroach on the setback amounts of somebody else's property, I have to apply for a variance and I have to notify that homeowner. Why was our neighborhood not notified that he did not large setbacks to 15 feet, which is not an appropriate setback for housing? They're literally going to be touching the trees. There's no yards. In this section, in this middle section, you're cramming 4 houses. You're going to have all of these residents living in these homes. By their estimate, at least 3 people per home. What are these folks going to be doing for an outlet? There's no areas for any kind of recreation. They're crammed in there. As residents of Holly Court, we're also concerned with the fact that our street is a cul-de-sac and we bought our properties for a cul-de-sac. So now you potentially are gonna have all of these homes, oh, I don't wanna deal with the Berlin Turnpike, so let me go down to Holly Court, I'll just park my car right there and I'll just walk up through private property and access my home. And these are all things to consider. I mean, the trees that are there now, the lush evergreens are not lush at all. They've been trimmed down miserably. I mean, you can see right through them. So that's not gonna be something that's gonna protect our neighborhood. And as Linda was indicating, these properties where our ground level is, it goes up a hill. So these things are gonna be towering over our property. We've always gotten water in our neighborhoods because we're higher, we're lower than the highest elevation where the auto body place is and where these were. So this is just gonna increase the amount of water that's gonna come down into our neighborhoods. We've had problems with at any given storm, if it's a nice heavy storm, you're gonna see a pool of water in my backyard. And that's coming down from the hills and from the turnpike. Before this is even considered, I mean, I would implore you to listen to the residents of this area and what it's gonna do to our properties. I don't think any logical, feasible person thinks that it's okay to squeeze units into a 1.9 acre lot. All of these units. I mean, we vehemently oppose this proposal on the surface for many reasons. As Linda had indicated, the amount of properties that are in here, the amount of people parking, you're saying 2 parking spots. So what about guests? Where are guests gonna, I mean, these folks are gonna obviously have.
They're gonna come on my road.
Yeah, obviously gonna have people there.
Hang on. I can only listen to one, this commission will only listen to one person at a time. I appreciate the fact that this is a passionate issue, and I respect that. But I need to focus on what she's saying so that she can keep her thought. And if you wish to address the commission, we're happy to hear you. It's not a problem, okay? But I can only take it one time. Okay,
So
go
as I
ahead.
was saying, I mean, they're in their proposal, they're accounting for 2 parking spots. Well, what if somebody decides they're gonna have a gathering or something? Doesn't look like there's any allotted spots for visitors or for other places to park. Are they gonna go over to the auto body place and park there? Or perhaps, you know, the units he has over there? I mean, these are all things to consider when we're talking about cramming this number of homes in one area. And the aesthetic is not one that is New England or appropriate in harmony with our neighborhood. That's not the look that it's going for. If it's going to be squished in like that, these people are going to be on top of each other, and there's a concern for that. There's a concern for what people crammed into each other like that are going to do with each other as well. I mean, I've worked in the criminal justice field of work. My career is in that for over 20 years. I've seen housing complexes or what have you. I know somebody else in here too, where they become breeding grounds for things that people don't want in their neighborhoods. And I'm not saying that, I'm not targeting any group or anything of that nature. It's just the nature of the beast. And we would like that to also be taken into consideration when considering a project of this nature. There's a lot of, we have the brook, we have other areas of the town, and I think I would hope that this would all be taken into consideration for the people who lived in this neighborhood for so long and have been taxpayers of this town. And I implore you to take a deeper look at this, and if this is an appropriate thing for our area, for the town of Berlin, if it's appropriate for, I mean, again, it's putting the filter on of your own lenses. Is this something, would you be okay if somebody put 20 houses in your backyard, essentially? I mean, it's a scary thing for us. And I mean, traffic on the turnpike, believe me, I've lived in this neighborhood a long time. It's no secret that the turnpike traffic has completely increased, and the noise and the levels of all of that has increased. And I think the traffic study, if I'm quoting him correctly, said 240 visits per day. I may be incorrect with that, but that's a lot more traffic. And again, and if people don't want to deal with the Berlin Turnpike, where are they going to go? Are they going to circumvent it to probably Peter Parley? or come down to Meadow Lane or even onto Holly Court into our area. I mean, at the very least,
Oh, my
I think
God.
consideration should also be taken into consideration of the buffer for the neighborhood, if not new types of vegetation or fence of some nature, so that would prevent, if this were something, and I don't think any of our neighbors are saying that we don't think that this land should have some sort of housing on it, if we wanted to say that, but to this level is atrocious. And we're concerned about it. I mean, and if it were something to be taken into consideration, a way to prevent people from using our street as a parking lot could be fencing. Something that, that's private property. And as I heard them say, they're going to have to bring the sewage down to our street, which is going to then have an impact on perhaps the trees and things in our area, because that end of our street has trees on it. So if you're going to be bringing all this sewage down to our street, are you going to be tearing up what trees we do have?
We gotta make
in
sure
the
the
private
line's
land?
big enough to accept it too, on our side.
Okay, I'll get to your comments in a minute, but please let me just stay focused on her.
So these are all things that we would like the commission to certainly take into consideration, and upon further review, we'd like to have input in that. And as Linda said, it really is something we feel blindsided about, that the zoning was changed without, if we know that this abuts residential neighborhoods, a 15-foot, if I have to have 17 feet from my side yard to her side yard, I don't see a complex being able to reduce theirs to 15.5. I mean, I don't understand how that can be. I mean, my lot is a corner lot, so my front yard and my side yard is considered frontage. So essentially I have a 35-foot setback, and we're not even getting double that for a new complex in our neighborhood. So I implore you to consider this and consider all of the things that we put on the table today before this is considered in its current state. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And now, is there anyone else who wishes to address? Yes, ma'am.
Hi there, my name is Peter Riley and I live over on Peter Parley. I find the whole thing just horrific, and it's just unfair. I don't see how it's a plus. The other thing is that with the housing that is in there, you have 20 houses, nothing was said of what's the allocation for people within these houses. I heard something about each bedroom was 1.5, but how can that be controlled by anybody who is going to regulate the rental of these units? That and cars would just be all over the place. And you could have anywhere from 4 to 6 people living in each of those houses. Who's going to regulate that? I find it very distressing, and I'm so glad that all of our neighbors showed tonight and spoke so eloquently. And I'm very proud to be your neighbor. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Are we sure? Okay.
One more comment.
Yes, you can, because I don't think that there's, but I would have to have you come back to the mic. I'm sorry.
I meant to say this before. It's really
Just ready.
different. I would think it's really different.
Just state your name again.
Oh,
and your
Linda
address.
Alston.
Okay. all right.
I would think it's pretty difficult to look at everything on paper. We would invite you all to come over, take a little field trip over to our street. I'm at the end, traipse through my yard, walk up the hill, look at, 1676, what it actually will look like, and try to visualize the 20 units and look back and just see what it's going to do and visualize what the height's going to be. So we would love to have you come over. We'll give you coffee.
All right, well, thank you for the invite. We'll take it up. All right, anyone else? Okay, yes, me.
Patty Virgil, 27 House Court. 17-year-old son sitting in the audience. Made a good point. They're so squished together and there's such little room for any kind of play activity. Are they gonna come to Holly Court and use our cul-de-sac for basketball and dodgeball and all that stuff? So that's on the mind of a young gentleman who, it makes a lot of sense. Is that what they're gonna do? Are they gonna use our street for like bus routes? Are they going to, is there gonna be more traffic with more children on our street? So that's another thing to consider.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. A good observation. What else? Be shy, because this is your time to address the commission. All right. Okay. Another bite at the apple. All right. Well,
I could stay half an hour if you want. I think another thing along his lines is it going to be school-aged children? What school will that be? Will that then turn into a possible redistricting? Because now you're throwing more children into the school system. The Willard School, which is what our neighborhood currently goes to, is one of the biggest elementary schools in town already. So what is that? That's important to look at, is what impact could that have on the school systems, the busing routes, the things of that nature as well. I mean, those are all things in a division. Because my question would be, what demographic are we trying to get here? I mean, the Berlin Turnpike has other places for your empty nesters. I don't think an empty nester is going to buy a house right here with a Berlin Turnpike view. I mean, it's close. It's not a back lot. I mean, it's not a far back lot. So you're going to be readily on the Berlin Turnpike. So we have to consider, what is the demographic? If it is the demographic of families, then we have to consider the possibility for children and the capacity to which that can be handled, and how that's going to impact the schools and things of that nature. I mean, all things that are important. To just say, let us build houses and and again, and who's going to manage this? Is this going to be a property management company? What are they going to be held to? Are these going to be things where people buy these homes and then decide what they're going to do with them, rent them out? Or I mean, I would like to know. That's important too. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Probably stay home next time. John O'Brien, Vineyard Drive. I'll be calm this time. Just please. These people offer profit money and they go away. They don't care about Holly Court. Just please think about this being in your backyard. You living in Holly Court. There's a lot of interesting comments tonight. Parking. Are they going to park on Holly Court? Are the kids going to play basketball at the cul-de-sac and everything? Picture yourself paying taxes all these years to have your investment be lowered half the value of the house because of Mr. Profit over here wants to make the profit, build the houses and go away. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other hands up? No? At this point? All right, Maureen, anything from staff at this point? Before I turn to the commission, or would you rather?
Staff does have several comments and has some pending comments because we don't have comments from our town engineer yet. I would recommend we wait for his comments and would ask the commission that they consider leaving the public hearing open for comments from him, as well as the affordability plan being looked at by social services and our corporation council, which is pending as well. So I would appreciate both of that. I would like to procedurally try to educate for a second, if I may. So text amendments affect the regulations as a whole. This was explained to a couple of the residents that came in, but obviously they weren't all there. So text amendments are proposed to the text of the regulations in general and affect various properties throughout town and or zones or uses throughout the town. And therefore they don't require notification to abutters because there is no abutter. They require the notifications per the statutes and our regulations. and that the noticing for this application, I believe, was still fell under the protocols of the COVID-19 regulations that we had for noticing. And it was so noticed for that text amendment. And that public hearing was held in accordance with the regulations. The site plan and special permit application, or the special permit use and special permit application, is for a specific property. And that's what this application is. And it does require, because a special permit requires a public hearing, that's what gets noticed to abutting property owners of the specific property, which is subject to the approval. Site plan would not, however, we combine site plans with special permit uses. So special, it's included in that notification. We are also, there were several comments from our Berlin Water Control, and I would like to work with him through those to make sure that none of those are issues that can't be resolved, and that we get that as clear as possible. His concerns wrapped up as clear as possible before you close the hearing as well.
Okay, all right. But I think we're probably going to keep the hearing open only because we're waiting for the engineer and of course the council as well is going to weigh in on this. And so I don't know, commissioners, because our intention is to keep the public hearing open. If you want to comment at this time, or perhaps you just like to take in what we have been offered up today from the neighborhood and the people who have taken the time to come out and hold this into consideration until we actually get to come back and then fully deliberate the item with the next go round. Is that something that we would like to do this evening, or is just go ahead and, you know, take?
I make a motion to keep the public hearing open and next meeting. Staff more comments.
Okay, and then we'll also get to take a look at this a little bit more thoroughly and closely ourselves.
Yes.
Okay, and so what are we going to say? We're going to, I know we have the motion, but just so we have a date. Are we
Second the motion.
Who had the second?
I did.
Okay, Mr. Woolman. But can we now say what date we're going to continue the public hearing at?
Next meeting.
Next meeting will be December.
The next meeting is
2nd.
scheduled for December 2nd.
Okay, December.
Let me just look.
All right, so we
I
have a
always get it
motion
wrong.
to continue
Days
the
of the week.
public hearing, and this will be to Thursday, December 2nd. All right, we have a
Quick
second.
question before
Yes.
we, just as I'm thinking, Maureen, will that be enough time for staff to respond to, some of the things that were brought up to light tonight?
So when an item kept open, and I always suggest you keep it open with the possibility of more testimony at the next meeting. You can always then further continue it if you choose
just
to.
wanted to make
If
sure
you
that
say,
it's-
hey, we don't want to discuss this, and we can mark it if something's evident that we don't have information to share and be productive at the next meeting. At your pleasure, I can discuss that with the chairman, and we can notice that on the agenda so that the public doesn't come out unnecessarily to find out it's not going to get discussed, but we can put it on the agenda that this item will be further continued and not discussed,
Okay.
if that's the case. But it's always better to just put it onto the next meeting for the most part.
I think it's important that we have the information from the town engineer, town attorney as well.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. But for those of you who are here, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to actually focus on what Maureen said, is we're going to continue this to the 2nd of December, the next public hearing. However, if we can't get the information that we need or we're waiting for from the town engineer and others, she would put something up on the website before the meeting to notify you that it's going to now be moved off again. So this way you don't come out in the middle of a blizzard or something expecting to be heard. And then,
And you can always call the office as well to make sure that it's still proceeding at that meeting.
all right. So we have a motion, we have a second. And so
If I could, just very briefly, the engineer can't make it on the 2nd. So we would ask it to be continued to the 16th.
Okay, so do we have an amended motion
And
already?
this is the 16th.
And I'll second again.
Okay, so before anyone else has anything to offer me, I'm gonna say all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? So moved. All right. We'll see you all on 16th. And thank you. All right. It's a lot to think about. I'm just gonna give a minute so that we can clear the room. Beauty, great.
I apologize. Never mind, man, you got me. A perfect thing. I know where to go.
Okay, all right, so now you've had
Let me just remind the hallway that we can't, is Steve doing that? Yeah.
he wanted to get up and stretch.
Okay.
Steve, will you come back?
You can start.
All right, go ahead and start. Okay, so let's go on to the next, the site plan, special permit application of 1897 for Alta Equipment and construction equipment dealer for the use on the Berlin zoning regulations 6G3W and related site improvements at 1897 Berlin Turnpike. All righty. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming in and staying with us.
I still get anxiety. I remember when they used to come after me like that.
We can still do that.
Well, if you want us to revisit the old days.
No,
we'll
thank
ask
you.
you to do
You're
that.
missing it.
Oh, God, no, I didn't say I missed
Ah,
Good evening,
okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Commissioners. Thomas Kokomo, member of 1897 Berlin Turnpike LLC. I'm here this evening for a special permit and the site plan approval for the old property, if you recall, the old US Insulation property. They were there prior to that. It was the previous insulation company for about 20 years or so. And then they left in 2019 and Rizzo Electric came for a short period of time, about 8 to 12 months. And they left. And now the property is essentially vacant. And we found a tenant, a national tenant, one of their.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Kokomo.
Should I pop downstairs?
Oh, no.
You sure?
Yeah,
All good?
This is where our lives get so interesting. Thank goodness we made the big money.
No, that's the best.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kokomo.
No, that's quite all right. So I was saying Alta Equipment is a national publicly traded equipment company located, I believe, in Michigan is their home headquarters. They have a business in Wallingford, Connecticut, and they've outgrown that facility, and they've been looking for about 6 months, and we've been in conversation for the past 4. We've come to some preliminary terms pending approvals from this commission. One of the members of Alta is Tony Sola. He's here for that. He'll talk to you a little bit about his company. And what we're essentially looking to do is there's 2 buildings on the property. There's an old warehouse of 12,000 square feet. And we're going to modify that warehouse, we're going to add 1 more garage door. There's existing 3
3 garage doors. We're going to add 1 more garage door, make it 4. There's an existing door entrance to it, and we're going to put some windows in. We're going to put EPA siding on it, which drive it is stucco siding, and the color scheme is going to be consistent with what Alta has throughout their company, and it's generally earth tones, and their signage is red wording with white wording. We folded in orange, but it'll be red, we believe, and so we have commenced some of the insulation work on the existing structure, and we're going to continue to move forward with that siding improvements and facade improvement. We're going to, the site plan that you saw, there were some comments. We're going to add some landscaping out in the buffer. We're going to trim the egress curb cuts with new curbing around it and add more more low, not obstruction type vegetation. We're going to add out here in front of the door a retaining wall. One of the comments was make sure anything over 4 feet, the engineer, it's done, and it's not going to be more than 4 feet. We're going to add some landscaping here between this warehouse building and the old office building. We're going to add more landscaping there. We're not going to change the site at all, other than we're going to enhance the parking in front of the office building. I did not bring a sketch of the office building because that's going to stay intact with signage. We're going to come back before staff or potentially here on the signage there. We're going to replace the windows and the doors, but everything's going to stay the same. The parking in front of that building will be enhanced and repaved and lined for appropriate parking. The regulation calls for 16. We've provided 20 in our site plan. In front of this building, we're going to have parking for 1 spot between these 2 doors here, and we're creating a bullpen type area to the right of it, still keeping the buffer, which was some of the comments on Spruce Brook Road, keeping that dense tree buffer. We're going to create what we call a bullpen, which process stone, so it'll be pervious material, and a vinyl fence down the side. So that will be storage for their equipment. They sell new construction equipment, very similar to Tyler or Caterpillar HO Pen, if you're familiar with HO Pen, or Tyler, which is that was across the street from the gas station and Dunkin' Donuts right up past us. So it's a competitor of theirs. And if you know that site, they're pretty clean. I mean, it is construction materials, but they keep their used in equipment that they're working on behind the building, and that's the thought process was this little bullpen here. It'll go down the side of the building and around back, and so that will be screened. And then they're going to have any new equipment. What Tyler does, and they would like to do it too. So they bring the new equipment out, stage it, and then they'll bring it back and put it in. They may leave it because it's big, during the week over, but then on the weekend pull it back in, and just for advertising purposes. They're going to employ, I believe, at this location somewhere between 15 and 25 people. And this building will be used for sales for filters and oils and everything that's ancillary with construction equipment. Tony's here. He can tell you a little bit about Alta. I had some comments, and they were really, and Jack Gilbarton, our surveyor and engineer, could not be here. He's away on his anniversary, but his notes to me were he would request that as a condition of approval, he would work with Maureen, and because most of the comments were minor drafting change, and Maureen can tell you, Jack's pretty good at making drafting errors. He's consistent, and so we can clean them up and get them back to her. But other than that, I'd like you to maybe hear from Tony, and I would request an approval with some conditional approval, if you don't mind, just because we'd like to get the lease intact, and that's consistent with this. Oh, and one housekeeping thing before I turn over to Tony, because it's my obligation to tell you about Old Brickyard Lane. Thank you very much for that approval. the tenant has been stipulated by the court that they will be out in a month. So we will start construction there as well. That
That
was,
is good to know.
yes, thank you.
Thank you very
So come on
much.
up, Tony.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I ask for one thing to be clarified by the applicant? The town engineer and I had quite the discussion about is an explanation of what Mr. Kokomo just called the bullpen area and how the walls, what those walls will be and how, where the elevation is on each side of the wall, et cetera. So we can get an overview of the total. That seemed to be one of the conflicts in the drawing that we had trouble. And while they're here, I think on the record is the best place to have that.
So sure. So the area. So the area to the, if you're looking at the building, it's the southern side to the right. There was some growth there for trees. We did cut them out about 8 months ago. And the soil's all disturbed at the moment. What we're gonna do is just bulldoze the soils. It'll be level and consistent with the same level as the parking lot, but farther south towards Spruce Brook, the elevation does go up to Spruce Brook Road. We would have to put these cement blocks down, and they're usually 4 feet high by 8 feet wide. And you put those down, and then you set a vinyl fence on top of that, and that's the plan. So it would be, that maybe could potentially be right at the 4 foot. And what Jack was suggesting, that we would as-built it once it's constructed, and post-construction, if it does need any engineering, we can provide that as well.
Okay, so that wall, the wall with the fencing on top, that would actually be almost a retaining wall
Right,
to the sloped.
Spruce Brook side.
Spruce Brook
The
side.
the slope
Where all the woods are.
where the trees are now, yeah. So the trees are there, and the trees slope down a little bit, that side there.
And what goes
And,
in front now?
I'm sorry,
What's gonna be in front?
so that would be a gate,
A vinyl gate?
well, vinyl on sides will have, and then a sliding gate, so.
Sliding gate, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So if I may,
Yes,
the
go ahead.
total, the wall call out on the maps indicates 12 feet, but I think that's a construction. We want to clarify that that's just the call out of it, of how it's constructed. It won't be a 12-foot
No.
wall. There is no 12-foot wall.
There's no 12-foot wall. But one other thing to clarify too, Steve, it'll be vinyl, but I don't believe the sliding portion can be vinyl, because we'll have, if you request, we can put the slats through.
Well, you also want it for security purposes too, especially if you've got equipment back there with everything that's happening all over the place.
So with the 4 foot blocks, you put a
6 foot wall, be about 10 feet.
10 foot.
With barbed wire, double barbed wire.
Don't do
on top.
We hope that doesn't happen,
Oh, no.
or is not necessary.
Right.
You hope it's not.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Sola. I'm the Director of Product Support for Alta Equipment. My office right now is at 150 North Plains Industrial Road in Wallingford, Connecticut, where we have a facility down there that we share with a partner company called Nitco that we've just outgrown. In our travels, we have found the location that Mr. Kokomo has, that we were very interested in having our location in Connecticut. A little background on Alta Equipment. Alta Equipment is a compact construction equipment dealership throughout the country. We have locations in Florida. We have locations in Michigan, Illinois, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. Alta Equipment is a publicly owned company. We lease most of our buildings. We don't own a lot of our buildings. We lease them. Alta is very important in the way that we look, the way that the offices are, presentation of a building, the landscaping. So we're very happy what Mr. Kokomo has offered us so that we can move in there. We are a compact construction equipment. I did bring some brochures and pictures of the equipment that will be sold.
They'll be sold, they'll be rented, and they'll be repaired at the facility. And our footprint is exactly the same as Tyler Equipment, which is across the street. So.
You put Christmas lights in the tractor.
What can I use today?
The company that we represent, JCB, is a company that's overseas company that builds the equipment. It is comparable to a Caterpillar brand in the United States. They're out of the UK. We also repair and service the Avant models. And we also do the new brand we just took on is the Toro, which is a self-propelled ride-on unit that has many different attachments. Like Tom was saying, during the day, we would put the equipment out front so that we could get exposure from people driving back. A lot of it would be put back inside, and a lot of our attachments and buckets and stuff would be behind the building so that it's gated, so it's not stolen or lost. We do not have that in Wallingford, and we have a problem. We did inventory last week, and we had a lot of stuff that was missing.
Oh, no.
So.
How would you, I'm just thinking that you don't have the depth of a lot that they do have at the
Right.
competitor across the way. So how do you envision doing that display to the front of the building?
I don't think our inventory is as big as Tyler Equipment. We probably would have, 20 skid loaders, maybe 6 wheel loaders. Most of those Toro equipment, the smaller ones, would probably be stored inside or this side of the building. This side of the building would probably be used for equipment that is stored in that bullpen area that Tom was talking about to be repaired. Anything that we start repairs on will stay inside and will not be brought outside until it's repaired.
I'm just struggling to envision your ability to have the space to move.
Right.
If you have something on display and have that be a safe distance away from the turnpike.
Right. I think we measured.
Well, no, Diane, yeah, I think, well, I believe you're looking at at the site plan, and it does not look that deep, but when you take into consideration the state property that we have, the easement on, it's substantial in that front corner.
I'm trying to figure out where I am. I'm here. I thought I was already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, when you went by, Diane, I think it's when it was the US Insulation, they had a lot of trucks out there. And quite honestly, you didn't really notice them. It's like, for lack of better, protruding out towards the highway. What I'm recalling from when they were there. So I don't, and these things are going to actually be, some of the equipment's going to be actually smaller than some of those big insulation trucks they have. I don't see it being, an issue as far as that per se. Yeah, I'm more thinking safety and people and all that stuff. But I think with the trucks I saw, there shouldn't be a problem.
Most of the stuff, as you can see in the pictures, there's some dimensions. It's really compact.
Yeah.
It's not like a big category, D8 bulldozers or stuff like that. We don't sell that stuff. Oh, you like that? They'd be handy. We actually, we just brought some of those Toros in there, actually 36 inches. And the landscapers and tree guys that can put them through a gate, like in a property, so they don't have to move the gates and stuff, and they have rubber tracks so they don't destroy anything. So we've been selling a lot of them, and they have a number of attachments, buckets and grapples and pole diggers and stuff. So.
I think the word is that black.
Yeah.
Large company, and I'm sure that somebody, the town went down there and said, hey, So there, we were having problems with. Clean, the landscaping is nice. Yeah, I was looking at that atmosphere and everything that we're trying to do right now. So we just want to make sure that absolutely. More than.
Also, we have safety inspectors and we have appearance people that show up from time to time from our corporate office out of Michigan that, we strive on that. We don't want to mess out there. We want people that drive through your town to say, wow, look at that building that auto equipment has. Everything is so neat out front, everything is clean. And that's what we strive on. We do have a safety inspector that will be on the facilities most of the time to make sure, our customers are safe, our employees are safe, and the place is a clean environment so that we don't have any issues.
Green out front of the places.
Right.
Some curbing or whatever, and mowers and stuff like that. It's just total improvement, even if you just mow it.
Yeah.
So. And there's no intention of expanding out to other Kokomo property next door.
Well, I mean, it depends. I would love to bring, I would love to.
If they want to lease it.
Yeah, I would love to. But that's the cart before the horse. We want to make sure we get these two filled up and as they expand.
That's what's important is to get that in tip-top shape for them. From the commission, any questions or comments at this time? And I know that, I think Mr. Edge wanted to.
If you notice though, the difference, this will be much more attractive.
And I imagine at the holidays, we're gonna have some strong competition about.
The Christmas decoration?
Yes.
We'll have a competition.
What?
I said we can have a competition.
Well, I think you're gonna have.
I know the pilot
thoroughly
very well.
enjoy
I've worked with
Easter
them before.
equipment when they take the dump trucks.
Yeah, the dump truck is the package falling out.
Yeah, the Christmas tree and the.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Anyway,
Can I-
Mr. Edge would like to.
Can I just say for the record that I brought up on the screen, street views, this one is from 2016, when the installation business was still there, they were a permitted use, and that's why I brought this one up. They were allowed to be there. The one that you saw first and that everybody was remembering is the 2020 view, and Rizzo Construction was not authorized, nor did they have a site plan approved to have their equipment everywhere it was, so. That's why I brought up both.
Yeah, they're very good. All right, anyway, Mr. Edge.
That's 240 Kensington Road. I was going to do this in bullet point form because it's late. It's going to create employment opportunities. Their quality operation and look is very important to Alta. If you look online for what they've done, it's very important to them. Top-notch operation, and they partner with Steel Wrist. So the nice thing too is this is an extension of what the approval this commission did for Steel Wrist. They do a lot with them as well. So I think it really helps to move ahead or to let you know one has begun the other. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Anything else? Mr. Are we in public hearing on this? Yeah, we're in the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to address us regarding this?
I have a quick little question, not really
Yes.
zoning related, but you actually looked at inventory?
Excuse
You
me?
actually have inventory?
We have inventory, yes, that is very hard for us right now. We have a lot of orders in for inventory, but because of COVID
Yeah.
and the factories that shut down at times, they are releasing some machines at a time, but matter of fact, I think we ordered 2 weeks ago for 2023. So, but we do have some substantial inventory. The inventory from the Connecticut branch and the 2 Massachusetts branches and the New Hampshire and Maine, we kind of, whoever needs a piece of equipment that is on somebody's lot, we will transfer it to the customer. And so we do, we would like a lot more than what we have, but it's just the nature of the economy.
You have a truck skid steer sitting?
Yes.
Do you?
Oh, you got a fire.
Oh, boy.
Get him a car.
I'll leave my card for you.
You got a fire.
First, we gotta get moved in. So first time you have to do a good job. And we can
You will.
the shade. And I imagine that lighting and other issues, signage is all gonna be running through the. But Maureen?
Is sales only or lease, rentals?
It'll be a sales office, it'll be a service office, and we would rent stuff out of it.
Maureen? Anything?
Yeah, I have just a couple of additional comments that I didn't include. And a clarification on my staff comments, number 7, where I noted that any previous non-conforming uses. I just wanted to clarify, I found the installation business may not have been non-conforming as I thought it was. It may have been approved regardless. Obviously, when you get an approved use, your non-conformities go away. Noting in response to comments made tonight, any encroachment onto the state right of way, as noted, as far as the work with regard to the landscaping, but any use of that property is subject to their lease agreement and or anything else within the state right of way, needs the state to approve it. Any repair drainage would need to meet the appropriate and applicable licensing and environmental standards if those apply as well. And that any applicable licensing be obtained. It is not the typical DMV use where you get a dealers and repairers license and it goes through the zoning board of appeals. This is equipment. So if there's licensing required, they would need to obtain that. I don't believe it needs zoning sign off, but want that on the record.
We're still in public hearing.
Yeah.
I just like to make a comment. I think it'd be a great spot for this, especially Tyler down there, bring people to Berlin, national company, jazz up the side. I think it'd be a home run for the town.
Just like to bring up the zoning enforcement officer comments. Of a 30-foot landscape rear yard in the flex residential zone, 2 rows staggered 6-foot high evergreen trees should be put across the back. And that only 2 curb cuts are allowed. Look at that.
I think that's state though, because that's not us, it's the state.
I'm sorry, I failed to respond to those comments in my comments, but it is an existing conditions and an existing developed site. So modifications to that, in that they're not proposing modifications to the site where the commission's limited on the changes to be made. It's already a fully developed site, so it's a change of use of it. Although enhancing buffers, et cetera, are at the pleasure of the commission for special permits for this specific use. I don't think the curb cut issue is under the purview.
I'm concerned with the back, to the residential in the back, because has been a problem with construction equipment or equipment like this in there. I think that landscaping should be required in the back. That has some regulations. Or cut, I think, he's correct, that's the state issue. So I think that to the residential is a concern to me.
But in reference to the landscaping, you go up a big hill in the back, Tommy, and then the houses sit up like farther back up there, like can you even see it?
Yeah, so if you turn around and look,
Isn't there all, like, trees behind there?
yeah, so
I think it's pretty thick, Tim, is what I'm trying to say.
we have no intention of the existing, so there you go.
Yeah, see right there?
So if you, there you go, Maureen. So where the building is, the L-shaped building, where Maureen's arrow is, we did cut like up against that, probably 10 feet. And then along the side, we cut 30 feet, and that's where that bullpen will be. But that dimension between the building and Spruce Brook is like you said, Steve, so much higher, and so is that first house. It's pretty thick there. I mean, I'd be happy to infill if that's what you're requesting, Tim. But I think those trees are so mature.
Infill, whatever needs to be infill, I don't have a problem with that, you know, if it's thick enough around there, that buffer is strong enough for those residents.
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
Yeah,
No, we just don't want, especially at one little house.
right there. Yeah, that one.
Lord have mercy.
I didn't even realize it, that there's that for all, there's a little house that's ours, but it's SNET's.
This?
Yeah, right there. It's on our property, yeah, but it's SNET. I gotta check the title. No.
Be getting a rent.
I know.
Where's the rent?
That's what we that's the little house you're talking about, but that is our property. Yeah,
This
right.
house,
That house is.
this house is a neighbor.
Yeah.
This is a
But no,
small, more, almost a shed property, almost a shed building.
Yeah, right.
All right. Yeah. And what are the hours of operation? Just really-
The hours of operation are 7 to 5.
Oh, okay. It's Monday through Friday? or-
Monday through Friday, we're not open on Saturday.
Oh, Sundays either.
No Sunday.
That's nice.
Yep.
We wish those people. Okay, anything else?
Go ahead, go. I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Rogan, we have a second by Mr. Woolman. All those, further discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, so moved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
To all business, all right, so proposed amendment for section.
I'll leave those brochures so you guys can.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I'll
See
find
you
one
in
under my
common ground.
Christmas tree. All right.
Who seconded?
I did.
Thank you.
Mr. Woolman. So proposed amendment to section 7M2B of the Berlin zoning regulations concerning greenhouses. Attorney Brad Munchen. Okay, whatever. Well, I mean, not whatever. But okay, all right. So we had closed the public hearing, so here we are, and now we get to deliberate. I think you've given the commission a lot to think about. So,
So what I'll remind you is that the commission asked that we retype it simply and clearly with the direction that you were giving at the, based on the direction from the last meeting. So the new type is all as discussed at the last meeting, or not changed back to not changed.
I see now we have the 200 foot setback from the highway.
You had indicated that any less would not be acceptable.
I'm just trying to familiarize myself with what we have here. I'm sorry.
If you'd like me to go through the changes, I can. If you just want to read, that's great too.
Yeah, I mean, it's questions, or do you need a few more minutes to look through it? And some comments. Okay. Food for thought. All right. Let's go. Okay. So, commercial greenhouses, the description that we have here, highlighted in yellow, are predominantly rigid, translucent exterior. That definition would exclude what you would what you think of as a conventional greenhouse, similar to the sunny border greenhouses that are a little bit south of this property, because they're a plastic, not a rigid material. The 5,000 square feet commercial designation really is just two of the hoop houses, equivalent to two hoop houses for like what Pierre has. So that's an estimate of 30 feet wide, 96 feet long, standard length. And then the 250,000 square feet is actually a little bit greater in size than 5 acres. So there's lots of commercial greenhouse businesses that would have a softer sided structure that would not qualify based on this definition. And there's no discussion really about separations between greenhouses, spacing between greenhouses, gutter connections. And then when you think about the use used for production of fruits, vegetables, flowers, and any other plants that require special conditions of temperature. We're considering the agricultural regulation kind of as a whole with this. This type of structure is something that is now commonly used to house animals as well. I think we would be remiss to not consider that as a potential use. And with respect to use of artificial light for growing between the hours of 7 p.m. and 6 a.m., that might work very well for the hydroponics, but it, based on the testimony that we've heard, would not work for other types of greenhouse operations. So that language would be restrictive. And I personally find the greenhouse shall be eco-friendly and shall not negatively affect the aquifer to be very vague. It sounds good, but I don't know how you prove it in the end. And then ultimately, the impervious coverage, maximum impervious coverage, to me seems excessive.
So my thoughts on some of those comments were, the reason we went with the rigid translucent exterior was because if you look at Sunny Borders greenhouses currently right now, like plastic shreds, it looks horrible. So it's more like a facade thing. Making sure that as they would stood the test of time, they looked good. As far as the lighting issue, it's supposed to be all natural light for the beginning. I think those hours work. Really what it comes down to is how powerful artificial lights are. They're meant to mimic the sun. So with the potential impact of hundreds of acres, if we allow them to go 24/7 with all the residential, it would be like having 200 acres of stadium lighting. And I think that could have a very negative impact on the surrounding communities. And I do agree with you that it's a hard thing to, for the last point, I think, so I do like the hours, I think that would work. And considering also nice thing about work is that a lot of flowering for, I can see that, I can understand why those hours would be beneficial as for flowering plants or for the fruiting period. It's 12 hours of light is generally what's used to produce your fruit or whatever, which you get with this 13-hour window. So that works for me. Eco-friendly negative effect on the aquifer. I do agree that would be hard. The only way it would be measured is that currently nobody has problems with their wells in the area or like the fish hatchery that we have down the street, those water levels. So I guess that would be measured in the fact that if people start reporting that their wells are having trouble, or we start to see the water table decrease at the fish hatchery, then it would have to be addressed that they're using too much water.
How do you prove that?
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I'm sorry, just realized a procedural issue. We had seated on this, the alternate that's not seated tonight, I believe. Yes. And just who's seated for the discussion and the deliberation. Those seated should be are allowed to discuss during deliberations. Those not seated are not. I also do understand that Commissioner Capola also listened and caught herself up to speed on the entire testimony as well. I mean, she should obviously confirm that if that's what you choose to do, but seating is an issue.
Okay, so just so we can clear that up, then if Ms. Capola is all caught up with listening to the first tape, and then she was here for the rest of the testimonies. And Mr. Fiala was here as well for all of it. I know Mr. Zaragoza, but he's excused today.
He was not seated. No, we had seated for the hearing Jorsey, Veely, Vignani, Biella, Rogan, Woolman, and Zigmont, with Biella and Vignani seated.
Yeah, but we only need one of them today. Technically, right? Because Sandy's caught up.
If Sandy, yeah.
Sandy's caught up. Yes, ma'am. So she's seated, and so Steve has been, okay, yeah, so we just stay with what we have.
Okay, just
Are we good? No, I'm glad you said that. Glad you brought that forward. All right, so that's, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, where were we?
The water expert and stuff like that, and the water thing that was just brought up. Gotta be a testing procedure. Water or
We're talking water quality. Yeah.
water quality
Well, yeah.
procedures and the aquifer tested of the depth of the aquifer because it's run down the aquifer where the test of the actual safety water. That too, but at least the quality of water should be tested every 5-year span or whatever.
Why?
I don't know. Why?
For what? They're not using pesticides?
They are using.
No, they're not using pesticides, but I mean, I think what you're. Everything's contained.
And this model does not, the model does not reach back into.
Okay.
the ground.
No, I think I hear what you're saying, Tim. I think what you were originally, your concern was is that this 1 million gallons of water. And
Right.
that was a
No
concern.
pollution
And
to
then
No
the
pollution
fact
to
that
the
they may have to
aquifer.
replenish some water, so.
No pollution to the aquifer. Wrong aquifer down.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what.
Yeah, big question is how do you measure it?
What is meant by negative impact?
Yeah, what is
Yeah,
that? by
that is
the
very-
way? That's exactly.
It means it's not good.
Exactly. How do you test it? It's something like that.
I can see what that is.
All right. Let's go down to the side and see. Yeah.
Well, no, it is a question because as, you know, as you were saying, your particular operation doesn't use pesticides, but one down the road may. You know, that's one of the concerns because we're not just looking at for this particular project, it could be for anything that's going to now happen in those districts.
Yes, which covers about 200 acres. And I think that's where I like the term eco-friendly because if you're using a chemical pesticide that's not eco-friendly, it would have to be organic in the least.
Based on what?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
We can't regulate pesticides. We can't control what they use.
And I have to say too, I kind of agree with Diane as far as the building coverage and impervious. It's just, it's a lot. I mean, I look at that area and it's, you know, I know farming changes. But I look at it as good farmland and soil and drainage and covering that much of it with a building. In addition to the, you know, pavement and et cetera for that. It's just large. And I keep thinking about the plan of conservation and development, the vista and the size of the building, like, you know, the 250,000, that's what it said, correct?
Yeah.
250,000 square feet. Well, that's over 5 acres. And you have, depending on what property, have 3 or 4 of them as you're coming through. I don't know what that does for the vista of that area. So those are some of my concerns.
Anyone else? I myself, I thought the project was very exciting. And I thought it was very interesting. But I too also have a love of the landscape. And I mean, I know that they're going to compromise back to the 200 feet from the road, which I think is great. My concern is with the size of each, you know, the 5 square feet, the 5 acres, the coverage, and then, of course, you know, the coverage of the impervious surface as well, and how it's going to impact that whole area, not only visually, but when the rains do come, I mean, where does it go? So I think it's a really neat project, and I wish we could somehow make it all fit. But I'm sort of weighing between the two. I think for me, it goes back, because you guys that have known me for years know that I've been a huge advocate for agriculture, and I do actually like the proposal, but I don't think that that area is the right spot for it. I think this type of business as being more appropriate for areas that are sort of industrial in use. And I don't know, other commissioners. Is this gonna?
I'm reading, sorry. Yeah, I can read.
I know.
No pictures.
I definitely think since it started, it came a long way.
There's no way to make those greenhouses any smaller, is there? And then again, it's production. Yeah, no, I understand they have a business to run, and I appreciate that.
This is permitted right. In this, right, the agriculture. Right, it's permitted right. The agriculture is in that POD.
Agriculture is a permitted use in the zone.
Yeah.
Although I think we were correcting some conflicting language, if I can remember way back to that provision.
Can we do it as a special permit? Well, we have that. Say again, you know what I mean? And review the project totally as a special permit. I like, overall, I like the project. I mean, it's a good thing for nature. But I mean, but I would like to have a little bit more say on it. More project came into the area under special permit or site plan. I don't know. You know, how much that would be to change that language. It would be special permit. Then have to come to this commission. You basically like this one.
Well, yeah, we're looking at regulation. We're looking at the regulations.
I know, but it's a special permit for anything. And the regulations could say special permit for anything like this.
Yeah, but you have to have the regulation in place.
Not site plan.
Well, no, not the site plan, but I mean, we're trying to amend the text.
Talking about two totally different things.
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing is trying to figure out how to get wording for protecting the aquifer a little less ambiguous. I know that was my recommendation. Not negative, but
It's my recollection that whether, I'd have to go back and listen to the tape myself. But that there was discussion during the first hearing with regard to the proposed language being proposed as a site plan use for the commercial greenhouses as opposed to a special permit use. I believe that discussion did happen amongst the commission. So during deliberations, the commission re-raising that issue, I don't think is, I think it can be appropriate. You can re-raise that issue in, if it was discussed previously. To have the commercial, let's see, as opposed to it being permitted uses A and B, be permitted uses, and then in special permit, under special permit uses instead of under permitted uses.
We have that review.
Of course, I would recommend always when you consider a special permit language that the criteria for that special permit be put into the language. And I believe the criteria was proposed in the site plan, in this language, so that it was falling under a site plan use because the criteria was there. So.
It's right. Different.
All right, so we have the zoning regulations here, the proposal.
Huh?
Agriculture is different.
It is. It's-
Yeah,
It's, I don't know, I'm,
I don't have a problem with the agriculture use, we're talking agriculture. You know, so that's when you're talking about structures this size, aquifers and everything else, there's a lot of being considered. That's why I'm looking for that special permit.
yeah.
Just to have it come here,
Do we know what the, I
not
mean,
just file a building plan and build it.
well, when we talk about just like a house, when we
Right.
talk about these plexiglass greenhouses, do we know what the average size is?
I mean, I've seen 30, I have seen these, you drive to Crown Lake, and you go to Cheshire, you can see them. And the nice thing is with the 30-foot limit, you do have to do that gutter design. I do actually think they look appealing. I know someone, first time I went drive through Cromwell, I was like, actually, that looks nice.
Would you see in Cromwell, the old, is that the old Rose?
Think
Rose Road?
So I don't recall the actual name that was on it, but I know if you go to Cheshire and highway, it's like exit 3.
It's exit 3 down Route 10.
They go right, you go down there, like Griffin Greenhouse and everything.
Johnson
Street. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Another one was over there.
They're nice looking greenhouses.
I just look at something this size, it's like looking at it with zone. Yeah, well, I think that's the problem I have with it, is just the size, the overall, that 5 acres, I mean, I look at 5 acres and I say, imagine this all walled in, and I can't make that leap. So I was just wondering, what is considered a hefty size for a little house? I mean, because, obviously hydroponics may take other equipment or setups, into, more than just planting plants and spraying them down. But taking that into account, is there not a way to have a smaller greenhouse that would still have, not feed up the aesthetics of the area? They need to be able to produce.
Yeah, right, you gotta,
So-
you're not gonna spend all this money not to make it.
Right.
And
yeah,
I
but I mean-
disagree with your premise that it looks like Amazon, because for some reason, and maybe it's just my perception, when you go by Cheshire, you go by Cromwell, you see the greenhouses, it doesn't offend you because you know what it's for.
Yeah.
It's not shipping boxes. They're producing flowers, they're producing food.
Yeah.
And it takes, the vista and all that, I get that. But your mindset is somewhat different when you know what it's being used for, as opposed to driving trucks in, driving boxes out. So I don't think it has that same flair in life. And I agree with Brian too. When you go by it, well, if you go by both these places, there's a lot of greenhouses on these spots.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just speaking personally.
Well,
The
no, and
perception
that's what
is,
we're here for.
right, the perception is that it's not a commercial building. And I just think differently when I see it. That's just my opinion. And they look cleaner and nicer.
So also the 5 acre size, I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% positive, but I'm pretty sure that it triggers additional permitting requirements for stormwater infrastructure kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
So that would cover it.
so
Be better for us, you're saying, to cover us to make sure that those issues.
well, it's an added step that they're gonna have to go through with. And the infrastructure part of it, the construction of all of that has to fit on the site.
Yeah, well, that's their issue, not
Right.
ours, all right?
I think it's a pretty good regulation all in all. If you wanted to do it as a special permit thing or a special site plan application, so we could have a little bit more control over the few ambiguities that are left in it.
But that's not what's brought before us. I mean, that's like telling an applicant they need to change what they brought before us. I don't think that's our job. Our job is to vote on what they put in front.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Well,
you know,
Marty was earlier saying that that was one of the original questions.
right, but this is what they've come to us with.
Yeah.
So that's like saying someone's coming for a zone change or whatever. We go, no, why don't we do it this way? They come to us with this. We need to take this into account as opposed to switching into something else.
Any
I mean, I don't know the rule. I'm just saying.
Anything,
no,
any
I-
You can't tell the
testimony, on
applicant
anything
what
brought
to
up
do,
at the public
except
hearing
what they
can
put.
be.
Let me finish,
And-
please. What they put in front of us, that's what we go with. You know what I mean? Tell them to do something different. This thing that they can see. Well, that's just and the fact that they went there, my concern initially was the 70 hours.
When you look at
Yeah.
that,
I was a no go because that's on the.
and if you look at, you look at the chicken coops, and those are at 200 feet, and
And you don't. even
those
notice.
are warehouse looking buildings, and they really aren't,
Hey, leave those chickens.
they're not that obtrusive
Yeah, you-
of
you-
structure.
What do you got against chickens?
I just think it's just different than a commercial building. Like, somebody wanted to build a 5 acre block building. It'd be pretty quick. Thank you, no, thank you. It's just a different flair, it's a different business. It's the agriculture, which no one's doing anymore. That's some of the things that interest me in it, as opposed to just going, oh, it's just gonna be here. Because no one's coming in there putting fun. You just can't.
And something is going to eventually happen.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it may be,
This is a good option.
yeah.
But to Sandy's point, and others have said, and this is my biggest fear, is that this thing's gonna go up and I'm gonna go, what the hell did I do? You know, and I mean, that's and I think that everyone who's on planning and zoning always
That's every
looks at,
project.
every project.
That's
That's
every
all we
project.
look, because we have to use our imagination, and we have to draw in our minds the project, and we gotta put it there. We gotta say, when I see my neighbors at the grocery store, they're gonna say, what were you thinking? How could you do this? And that is.
Or they come up and say, what a great job.
Yeah, or they come up.
So we can't just go glass half full.
Never have, yeah.
No,
But that's-
trust me, I know.
Yeah.
You gotta remember the business I'm in and what I've lost being on this commission.
And I think that goes back to what Sandy was trying to say, is that when she said Amazon building, I don't think she's talking about Amazon, the company, or at least, I don't want to speak for you, but I think you were sensing what I was sensing is, what does this look like? how is this gonna look? I mean, is it gonna be okay? And how is it gonna impact the landscape? I mean,
No different than
part
what
of
we
me,
just did on Farmington Avenue.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
and part of me is also saying, oh, there's plexiglass people to see right through it. So- I mean, that's my blonde moment. You can strike that from the record. Frank. Okay.
That's growing.
Well, I don't know. Okay, so
Can-
we're having some good discussion and I'm happy to be the recipient.
Can I make a quick clarification?
yeah.
Because I heard confusion amongst you and I don't know if
We are
you,
very
if
confused
there,
with this.
if
Yeah.
actually it exists or if it's part of the discussion. But the regulation is to separate agriculture as uses that are allowed under the farming regulations in the 11C, and then commercial, which allow greenhouses up to 5,000 square feet. And then this being B, which is the commercial greenhouses that are in excess of 5,000 square feet, being a site plan application. So it's not an as of right application to put in the greenhouses and the staff does it. It would still be subject to coming here for site plan review in accordance with the site plan regulations for stormwater and the criteria that's specifically laid out in here. So I just heard confusion about that and wanted to make sure you realized it was, you still get to see the application.
Do you have any more comments or feedback or? Well, we have this in front of us, folks. And do we have anyone who would like to make a motion? Do we have anything else that has to be thought of?
Make a motion to approve staff comments.
Okay.
As amended
All right, so Mr.
or
Zigman's
modified.
motion to approve by Mr. Zigman. Have a second for further discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Woolman has a second. Now, I know before we call the vote, is there any further discussion?
So if I understand correctly, when we're voting on this, we're gonna say that building coverage will be 60% and the impervious surface will be 70%.
Yes.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just saw a note from Commissioner Vignani, who is not seated, but he's losing his battery, so he
Okay.
was planning to was going to have to log off. He wanted to let you know.
Okay, all right, well, hang in there. we'll-
That's where you were, though.
we'll almost through this because, okay, so, Sandy, did you have, I'm sorry. Your comment?
I wanted to make sure I understood correctly that we're gonna be allowing up to 60% of coverage by building.
That's the change. Building coverage 60%.
That change was a 200-foot frontage.
Well, yeah, that's also the minimum front yard is 200 feet.
So they'd have to abide by 200-foot, 47-foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'd all have to be. landscape level.
No, not just one lot. I know. Well, again, we're looking at the paper here, not the project. We're looking at the, let's move the vote. Okay. We got a motion, we're not accomplishing much. Okay, all right, so we have a motion, we have a second. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye.
Roll call.
Can I do a roll call? You want me to do a roll call? Okay. Commissioner Corolla? Commissioner Jorsey? Commissioner Sigmund? Commissioner Rogan?
Yes.
Commissioner Wallman?
Yes.
Chairman Bailey?
No.
And Commissioner Biella?
Yes.
4-3.
You don't need,
So
super-
the,
on a regulation change, we don't need supermajority.
no, we don't.
Don't believe so.
I don't believe you do.
They didn't look at that this week.
Well,
We didn't anticipate
Yeah,
this
we've
morning.
never-
What the hell are you doing down there?
I wasn't
We've never
expecting
been a
that.
tiebreaker.
I was not expecting
That's a good question. Do you need
to know
supermajority?
this. But I don't think so. Do you know? Our attorney, know what
We've never
that-
done a vote like
the
that.
vote, but the vote
I
by
can recall.
No.
something you don't.
I'm sorry.
No.
It's good. That's the whole idea.
Well, that's the
That's
reason
the
why.
idea, that's
that's
the
the reason
idea,
why
having seven
discussion.
members.
Yep.
That's
Poor
why-
Steve Biella, he was like, oh my God.
Oh my God, I gotta-
I know he's watching it.
Oh my God, I gotta sit down.
Well, Steve's fault. I don't mean me.
Yell at me at the grocery store, Joe.
No, I'm just kidding. But it's true.
Double checking.
The price of lettuce better go down.
Not I see that, I see that Joe Healy coming in there for $5. No. You know, I think we're.
I think it's
I
a
think
simple
we're good.
majority. I did ask for confirmation of that,
Would you
because
ask?
I'm our attorney.
Oh.
Because I'm not sure I can find it that quickly. You can probably find it quicker. I don't have my handbook.
We believe it's in.
It's the applicant.
It's a given, and you represent the applicants, why are we not believing?
Builder side, yeah. Lawyer side.
You know,
Okay,
we
we're
just-
good.
we
Guys are right.
Yeah. We saw you grimacing in the back, I couldn't watch.
I know, I couldn't watch either.
They couldn't cross their fingers anymore.
Oh, no, I know.
We were counting.
As we were all flipping. Like watching a jury.
Yeah, it's like the bull.
You guys have to do it in public.
What?
You guys have to do it in
I
public.
know, it's, you know. It's, it all, and you know what? In the end, it all works out.
Bull on TV, the jurors let out green and red.
I'm just thinking hard on this one.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be.
I'm gonna rest easy tonight, finally.
Are we done with the record? The one thing that.
Yeah.
We're still on record.
We're still on
On
record.
record, it's still going.
Did Jennifer call you?
No, she hasn't.
Maybe
I'm
she just
looking
called.
in. my-
I think. we're
I
all
think
set
it
with
is.
this.
I'm so sorry. It's like
No, no, no,
escaping
we've
me off
never
the
had
top
a
of my
vote
head.
like this. You know, we just. this
Not
is-
since I started.
Huh?
Not since I started.
No,
Just be.
phone a friend.
What a friend lawyer.
Jeez.
Did have another hearing, so she might not be able to answer.
I'm not going to answer now.
That's right.
She was at another hearing tonight. I am almost positive it's a simple majority, so. I'm fairly confident with the simple majority, but I will check it before I post it and or, you know,
Yeah.
right, before we write that decision legally, I will. And if I can find it before the meeting ends, we will
All right.
also announce it.
Well, how about while you're doing that, and hopefully we'll get this resolved, we'll go on to the last piece of business for tonight. How about we can do that? All right.
You can
That
certainly,
helps
I
everyone.
can.
3 hours
Why
late.
he's still hanging around.
All right, so we're gonna we're gonna talk about the old business. We're gonna talk, we're not gonna talk about real housing because they move.
You gotta get all
Special,
those text. We already voted on that one. So we did that, my bad.
Alta,
Okay.
we're on to Alta, which is the last one, the site plan for Alta equipment at 1897 Berlin Turnpike. Okay, so,
I'll make a motion
okay,
to approve the special permit site plan of 1897 Berlin Turnpike for alter equipment.
okay, thank you, Mr. Walden.
With, yes, sorry, subject with staff comments.
Second. Oh, Ms. Dorsey has a second. Sorry. Further discussion? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved.
How easy that was.
Welcome.
Now we're just waiting for.
Get Steve as a equipment. Get Steve as a equipment in never had that.
Yeah, yeah, go get her equipment. If we adjourn.
Your vote's the same regardless.
Huh?
Your vote carries, your vote is the same regardless,
Okay,
so.
so why don't we have it so that if they want to. So, yeah, let's adjourn. We'll-
Window plate.
Oh, that's, you just scheduled that.
Scheduling a public hearing. Those were scheduling a public hearing.
All right.
Can I hit a couple of business? The revised POCD committee presentation will be emailed out. And anyone who, if you please can do the survey, the draft survey was sent out. If you can look that over and or have comments and or take the survey, and then we'll discuss it at the meeting. Remember, there's a meeting on Monday night
At
with
what
regard to
time?
that.
What time do we settle on?
I think it was a 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah, I thought it was 6, yeah, because we want to start earlier to get everyone home.
Getting darker early.
I think it was the second meeting that you went for earlier. Where's my calendar? Yeah, the Zoom meeting I invited you to was for the correct time. Yes. Monday. Me as well. That's what I,
All right, so that's the POCD.
actually, I have it at 7, but okay, we'll change it. I'll send out a confirmation email on that as well.
Okay, so we're just gonna.
And then my other comment was that we got Mr. Kokomo's announcement about Old Brickyard, so he took my thunder.
Okay. So motion to adjourn. So moved. Who gave the motion? Roman? All right.
Right now, we think you got it.
All righty.
Okay.
It's 10:17. For the record.